Hello there. Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator. And this is just a little bit of a test to see how my audio is. And if anybody shows up, we'll do an open mic. I may just end up deleting this video afterwards. But yeah, so I've had a lot of problems with this freaking microphone right here. HyperX. I sound good. I'm using a Blue Yeti. This is actually my first microphone that I had. And this is considered a very good microphone by a lot of YouTubers. I see a lot of big channels where they use this exact microphone. It's a Blue Yeti Blackout. And their videos sound great. But I got this when I first started doing YouTube, and I had problems with it because it's a cardioid mic, so it's very sensitive to how you which orientation it's in. Like if I turn it like this, it sounds weird, like it doesn't sound right. So yeah. Yeah, so let me put the link to the stream in the chat. So if anybody, wants to join, feel free. You can come backstage. I'll add somebody depending on if I know the person and if I can. Pretty much if I know the person. I'm not going to add just anybody because I don't want to get porn bombed. So first off, I got my ear pierced and I got a new haircut. You guys will have to let me know what you think. It's supposed to be like it's called like an undercut. It's like a Skrillex haircut. I went to the same salon that I went to when I got my hair colored. It's called the Color Studio. And you could see there's a little bit of the color left. It's funny because I look like Lord Farquaad with my hair like from this side. It's kind of funny. I look like Lord Farquaad from Shrek. There's a little bit of the color left. It used to be like a vibrant blue. Like you can go to my community posts and from a while ago and see like right after I got it done. So yeah, now it's like kind of a light green, but I think it still looks pretty cool. And I went in and I told him, give me a Skrillex haircut. I think it looks pretty good. Top knot it. I don't know what that is. I'll have to Google that. Kent's gonna love this stream. He mentioned me in his new video. He not the newest open mic, but the one he did the day before. Right off the bat, he had to say my last name. It's like I don't even care anymore, but it's like why? That Donnie told him that I don't want my last name to be said, that I never made that public. So he knows that I would prefer it if he didn't say it. And so he knowing that, it's why he says it. How like immature and childish and petulant is that? Seriously. Like, is it better if I look at the camera or is that weird? Is it weird if I don't look at the camera or is it better if we got Karisu. Chris, if the link is in the chat, if you want to join this, there's no point to this stream other than to just do like a sound check and you guys can let me know if my webcam looks okay. I know it looked kind of weird. This cold weather is killing me. I know it looked kind of weird in the Kent Hovind debate. Oh, Chris, if you're not doing anything, we could do the part 2 of my debate review. if you want to hop on. I might end up doing that by myself if you can't. But I know that my microphone or my webcam kind of looked like I had Vaseline on it in that debate. I don't know what it was. I didn't really have much time to prepare before we went live, um, and it didn't really matter. Uh, that debate was so tedious. Like, it was so repetitive. It was just like, literally, I knew exactly what questions Kent was going to ask me because I watched his video. Luckily, he did a whacking atheist on Neil deGrasse Tyson, Neil Deadass Tyson, and that was about carbon dating, which I don't know what that has to do with Neil deGrasse Tyson. All right, cool, awesome. Um, and in that video, he showed the same slides that he always does. And he showed these slides that I specifically showed in my intro. The Fairbanks Creek Mammoth, which Kent admitted that he was misrepresenting that one, that it was not one mammoth. It was actually two different mammoths that were found 8 or 9 years apart. And he was like, oh, well, they're in different strata. It's like, well, yeah, but you've been saying that it was one mammoth for decades, Kent. Yeah, for a while, I've suspected that the only reason that Kent wants to debate so many people, specifically atheists, is just as a method to farm people's personal information so he can dox them. Because he's not really debating people, is he? You know, he doesn't engage in the debates honestly. So it's just, I think it's just a way for him to get people's personal info because he loves to give out people's personal information. Hello, Bree. You're finally here at the beginning of one of my streams. That's good. I like how Kent accused me of having a script in the debate. That was rich. Oh, you have a script? No. Obviously, Kent is the one that has a script. Like, yeah, I knew what I was planning to say. I know what I want to watch. You guys can watch it with me until Kurisu joins. And maybe we'll just watch this one anyway, but I definitely want to watch Grayson's newest debate, not against Kent, but against Braised Ham. I am, and that's all that I am. Praised I am. Braised ham. All right, let's check this out. Boy, Grayson sure is handsome, isn't he? He is handsome. He's a handsome lad.
Independent of us locally, do you actually believe there's still something there? Objectively real?
Personally, yes, I do. But in terms of, like, it's not really about my personal beliefs. I don't think that there is.
That's so weird. Why don't I have any sound? Maybe I need to get my headphones. I'll be right back. I gotta grab my headphones. All right. So I think I should sound okay. Let's see.
Like, there's no consensus that
weird.
quantum mechanics.
Let me try.
Over.
Maybe this is so weird. Can you guys hear the debate?
Turned the
I cannot hear
notion of like objective reality
don't have it
being
muted.
real or
tab
physical.
Muted, do I?
Like the majority of quantum physicists
This is really weird.
are still
Oh wait, I think I
like
know why.
materialists. So
It's so weird. You guys can hear it, but I can't
know?
hear it.
Oh, come on, Grayson. You know that some of these scientists, they have their own presuppositions
Oh,
and
I know why.
biases they come
I know
into
why.
it.
That's
So
true.
Okay, I know why. I fixed it.
I wouldn't weigh, and I wouldn't weigh your belief on what scientists, you know, because there's materialists out there. That doesn't mean anything. People can hold contradictory views.
Well, I mean, that's a good point, but it's just is like, you know, for the people that are experts in quantum, like if you're trying to make the claim that quantum mechanics shows that that there's like reality is not objectively real and is not like physical, then it's just really weird that the people that are the foremost experts in this thing that supposedly does that don't also have that conclusion. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like all the people that claim that quantum mechanics shows that objective reality is not real, like they're usually not quantum physicists. I mean, I'm sure that you have quotes ready to go from quantum physicists, but they're like in that tiny percent is my point. And like, I don't know, man, it's just as weird that if it's so obvious that quantum mechanics debunks materialism, it's so weird how there's so many materialist quantum physicists.
You know, I mean, okay, so you're right. I can see like.
Howdy.
Hey.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
It's okay. Yeah. Your audio's good. The stream's audio's good coming through. So like you know, video, like everything's working fine. So I don't know what the issue was with you not being able to hear stuff. Yeah, it's actually I kind of got a bit of a headache, and I was about to lay down. And then I'm like, oh crap, AJ's on. So okay, and then you're like, hey, you want to do part 2? And I'm like, all right, time to get the emergency caffeine supplies. Let's do this.
Oh well, I mean, I don't want to force you to.
Oh no, I'm already, you know, like ready. It didn't take long for me to just be like, okay, switch gears.
Okay, so yeah, I guess we should do that. Unless you wanted to check out some of this debate. Yeah, I guess you're here. Let me switch over to the part 2. I'll do a separate video where I look at this praise IM debate because I am very interested to see what Grayson does here.
I mean, we can do whichever.
We might as well finish it. What do you think of my thumbnail, by the way?
Yeah, it's a nice one.
I actually made it. I actually made it for Grayson's new debate with Kent, but he ended up not using it. So I was like, well, I might as well use it for mine.
Okay.
Coal, break it up in same rock.
So do you remember where we were at?
Give me just a moment and I will find that out. Entertain everyone while I do the research.
Okay. So I just finished reading a book called The Fall of Hyperion. It's a sequel to Hyperion, which is a science fiction novel by Dan Simmons. I highly recommend it if you guys if any of you like Dune or you like science fiction novels. Check out Hyperion. It was a very good book. The sequel was not. I didn't like it as much. It was different, but the first one is like rock solid. So that's definitely what I've been up to. I'm always looking for recommendations for new books to read, specifically science fiction, because I read through all of the Dune books up to Heretics of Dune. I'm on that one, and I haven't finished that one yet. But I definitely loved God Emperor of Dune. That one was very good. Because Aiden got me on that whole Dune series. He got me into it, and once I start reading a book series, I kind of I'll start to knock them out. Like I've read A Song of Ice and Fire twice, the whole series. But I only listen to audiobooks. I don't know about you guys because I have astigmatism and I get headaches when I read sometimes. So for me, it's just easier to listen to an audiobook. Um, but I'd be interested in you guys' opinion on that.
It's funny. I mostly read nonfiction, and by read, I mean 95% of it is also audiobooks. I've got a relatively substantial book collection that I'd read previously, but nothing much new
Yeah.
has gone into the library because my vision's it's going downhill fast as anything.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is I would like to have a collection of books like just because I like how it looks on the shelf, but I don't read books. If I get a book in print, it'll just sit there and I won't read it, but an audiobook, I'll knock out the whole thing in a couple days usually.
Oh yeah, that's always a good time. You get the right zone, and you're able to split focus between whatever you're doing and listening to that.
Right,
It's
right.
so
You can
perfect.
multitask.
One of the few cases of true multitasking. To answer the question of how far we were, it was 46 minutes into the debate.
All right, 46 even.
Yeah, just about. We were like a few seconds
It
off.
only
So
goes
that'll
to
give us time to catch
60,000. It
up.
should all be gone.
All right.
Goes from a half to a fourth to an eighth to a 16th to immeasurable at some point. All of the authorities agree 40, 50, 60,000 years is the max. It should all be gone. It's not gone in the dinosaur bones. So rather than pick at maybe the method failed, why don't you pick at maybe your theory is stupid? Maybe the dinosaurs are not millions of years old. Maybe the coal is not millions of years old. Maybe that's why it still has C14. Why won't that thought even cross your brain, AJ?
Because there's not good evidence for that.
I just gave you the evidence. It still has
Yeah,
carbon
Never stops being
14.
funny.
So if you don't think C14 dating works, what's your alternative method? Like how should we date
What
things like archaeological artifacts?
you're switching topics without answering my question. Would it be feasible that maybe the theory is wrong that they're millions of years old? Since coal still contains it and dinosaur tissue still contains it, maybe they're young. Maybe everything is young. Is that even a possibility with your brain? Why won't you consider that?
Because there's lots of dates that are correct because they've been cross-confirmed by other methods and other lines of evidence.
You go right back to your script. You've said that about 4 times tonight. I've got to go back and count. So, okay, so if dinosaur
Excuse
bones...
me of having a script, and we all know that you're the one who has a script.
Oh,
Come
you
on.
definitely got a script you're going on. Okay.
How ridiculous is this? Seriously. Like, I went in the debate knowing what I was planning to say because, like I was saying, Kent did a Whack an Atheist on Neil Deadass Tyson, and it was about carbon dating. And at the end of the video, he has a slide that says things to consider with carbon dating, and he says you don't know you don't know what the initial amount was, you don't know that the decay rate hasn't changed, you don't know you don't know this, you don't know this. And so I literally, in preparation for my debate, I went on Chat GPT and I just asked, how do we know that the decay rate of radioactive elements has never changed? How do we know that the initial content in C14 dating? And I just used the answers from my slides, and it gave really good answers. And so I answered Kent's questions in my intro, and then throughout the debate, he's complaining that, oh, you said that 4 times. It's like, yeah, because you've asked me 4 times the same question. You know?
It's ridiculous that he comes at this as seriously as he does. And like I said yesterday, to try to claim, you have a script when we know he runs a script. He doesn't react in real time to what anyone says beyond trying to either push more of his points in air quotes or try to get you to answer some ridiculous question that's irrelevant. Whereas you're actively reacting to what he has to say, as everyone who debates him does. But he doesn't give the same. It's like you're going to accuse anyone else of running a script. You're just being childish, Kent.
Yeah. So my webcam, I was not smoking in my room. My webcam was just, I cleaned the lens on it, and I think what it was is that StreamYard had my resolution set at 480p instead of 720p on my webcam, and so that's why. Like you guys can see, I'm sure you guys can see that it looks better now, right? Like I think it's pretty noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
So I do apologize for that. I hope it's not too distracting.
Okay. If dinosaur tissue contains C14 and coal contains C14 and living snails contain C14, maybe C14 dating does work, and it's showing you that the Earth is not millions of years old, and dinosaurs did not live millions of years ago. And that ties right in with lots of other lines of evidence, like all the reported sightings of dinosaurs down through history, people slaying dragons, ancient artwork and pottery with dinosaurs on them. There's lots of evidence. You need to watch my video number 3. I think dinosaurs lived with man all along, and the C14 being found in their soft tissue is not a surprise to me at all. I don't have to excuse it. I can say, yeah, I believe that.
If C14 dating doesn't work, then why would it matter if coal has C14 in it and these other things have C14 in it? Why would it matter if the dating method doesn't work at all?
Well, this isn't, no, I'm not saying it doesn't work at all. I'm saying you have to understand the limitations. I'm saying you don't know.
I'm not saying the method doesn't work at all. You have to understand the limitations. That's what I'm saying, though.
Ken, the master of not paying attention at anything.
That's my position, not your position. Seriously. Like, he tried to slip that by me. I'm like, nope, you're not gonna do that.
Is this like that Simpsons moment where they switched playing good cop and bad cop at some point?
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
You remember that one yet? I forget which episode it is, but at some point, I think it's Skinner and Groundskeeper Willie interrogating Lisa. They switch good cop, bad cop roles, and she laughs about it. That's what it feels like.
What it started with. You don't know the decay rate's been the same. You don't know it's never been contaminated. I wouldn't trust it any further.
My face. I like the expression I have.
It's like, what, bro?
Just the annoyance.
I could throw a pig. Okay, it's crazy. The Bible says at the end of it,
you're arguing the negative position that carbon dating is not reliable. That's your position in this debate.
I'm showing you it is not reliable. Why did it work?
So if it's not reliable, then why does it matter if there's C14 found in coal, in diamonds, or in dinosaur soft tissue? I just want to point out to anybody who hasn't seen my very first debate with Kent, or actually my second debate with Kent, go back and watch my second debate with Kent and watch how he steamrolls over me and overtalks me the whole debate. And then look how I'm able to make Kent back down in this debate. You know, I'm way more confident in this one than I am in some of my early debates, because Kent will just overtalk you. If you let him, he will overtalk you and take all the fucking talk time. He talks about, I want equal time, but it's a lie. You know, he will just steamroll you if you let him. So you got to just not blatantly overtalk him and interrupt him, which I think Austin Sims was doing in his debate. He was interrupting Kent a lot, which, you know, I think that it was his first debate against Kent, and I think, you know, he'll get better with more experience. It was a good debate, but that was kind of a problem for me watching it. But my advice to people who do debate Kent is you don't have to blatantly interrupt him, but just don't let him gish gallop. Don't let him go on and on and on. You know, there's a right way to do it, basically.
Sort of hold him to his own, one topic at a time, because he never actually sticks to it.
Yeah. Correct anyway. How is that proof for your position?
That's exactly proof of my position. It should not be there, and it still is. So therefore, C14 dating is not reliable, because in your religion, dinosaur bones should not have any, and coal should not have any. You've already decided. Coal formed in the Carboniferous era 50 million years ago, or whenever it is, and dinosaurs lived 70 million years ago. You've already decided, and it didn't work on that.
Gracie, you have to say hi to Stacy and everybody in the chat.
I wasn't wanting to interrupt, even though it was Hovind, but hi, Stacy.
Hi, Stacy.
But you're unwilling to consider maybe my whole basic philosophy is wrong, and I don't know why you don't want to consider that. But it is detected in dinosaur tissue. It is detected in coal, plain and simple. So my point is,
you're arguing that that's proof that it's less than 6,000 years old, right?
Either it's less than 6,000 or the dating method doesn't work. Either way, I win.
Okay, if the dating method doesn't work, then how can you use it to say that this thing is 6,000 years old?
I'm not using it to say it's 6,000 years old.
Yes, you are.
I'm-
You just said you were.
No, I'm using the Bible to say the Earth is 6,000 years old, and that's what we have a written historical record by people who were there, not you, and that's what they said.
The Bible was written by people like 100 or like hundreds of years after the events happened, at least when it comes to Jesus's life. It was not eyewitness accounts.
And let's just say he's correct about that. It breaks down at a point when you reach, the whole Adam and Eve concept. Who the hell wrote the early parts? Just saying.
Seriously.
It's so petty to do, but it's like, seriously,
What's-
okay, you want to say it was written by contemporaries? Well, there was no one contemporary before that. So was God just jotting this stuff down on papyrus and be like, here you go, buddies?
Yes, that's what Kent says. He says
It
that
makes
God wrote
sense.
Genesis.
That would actually make
Serious.
complete sense if it wasn't for the fact it's all fairy tales, but we're not here to discuss that.
Right.
We know when pharaohs lived in Egypt because of written historical records. We know when
Yes, and we can use those written historical records to corroborate carbon dated things from Egypt. If we find something in the same tomb as those written records, and those written records have the date written on them, then we can use that to cross confirm the carbon date. I should have said that.
Yeah. Well, you're doing this on the fly. It's just, it's such simple stuff, and Kent just hand waves it away. And it's like, no, this totally logically follows. It's very straightforward. What can't you get, dude?
Yeah, seriously. And I was regretting that I didn't ask Kent if he accepts the carbon dated age of the Dead Sea Scrolls. That would have been interesting to ask him.
That would be.
Columbus discovered America because of written historical records. You don't want to trust this book. I understand why. Okay. But the fact is, tonight, is radiocarbon reliable? Obviously, it's not reliable on living organisms. It's not reliable on marine organisms. It's not reliable on dinosaur tissue. It's not reliable on coal. What exactly is it reliable on?
Specimens that have already died that are younger than 50,000 years old.
So why did we get carbon-14 in dinosaurs and coal?
I already gave examples of why that could be found there. But what about the other dating methods that are used to date rock strata that say the Earth is millions or billions of years old?
Well, we have another debate on that. Donnie, book another debate on potassium argon, uranium strontium. Which one do you want to do? Uranium decays to lead.
I'm just asking, are you discounting all of those too? Are those all wrong?
All dating methods, when you're taking an object that has something in it and that is decaying, you're assuming you know how much was in it when it started.
Okay, we have a super chat from Wayne for $4.99. It says, Kent can't catch a break lately with getting destroyed in debates. LOL. I agree. Like Grayson definitely killed him.
It's pretty. The debate's honestly hilarious.
It is. Like I acknowledge that my debate was not as good as Grayson's, but it was a pretty good 1-2 punch, I think.
Oh yes. Kent is at some point he's eventually gonna learn the whole F around find out concept. He's gonna realize he effed around all the time. Oh wait, he should have already done that when he went to prison for 9 years. So I guess we'll never learn that.
Well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah. I was being optimistic, you know.
Yeah.
How much was in the original, how much uranium it had to start with, and slowly decayed to lead? Because we're digging it up today, watching how fast uranium decays to lead. That we can measure. And we're assuming we know what was in it when it died, or when it was, in the case of a rock, when it was buried. Okay? Well, you can't know that. We're assuming that decay rate's been the same. Oh, you can't.
You can cross-confirm it with tree rings. It's not an assumption, Kent.
Tree rings don't go back that far, AJ.
Yes, they do.
They go back millions of years?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying you can cross-confirm carbon-14 dates with tree rings, with ice cores, and with coral.
Do you think the ice cores, each layer is a different year? Is that what you're saying? I show clearly on my
different topic. That's a different topic.
I agree. But
gentlemen, if I could jump in just to keep it as much as we can to the carbon dating, what I'd like to do, if I could, AJ, you mentioned that you presented a couple possible reasons why we find detectable levels of C14 in dinosaur bones, coal, and diamonds. And so I was wondering if you could present those or reiterate those points, and we'll allow Kent to to engage them?
All right. Yeah, well, one example is that there can be contamination, surface contamination. Diamonds exposed to modern atmospheric carbon can absorb trace amounts on their surfaces. Laboratory contamination. So radiocarbon dating requires extremely sensitive instruments, making them susceptible to contamination from sources such as cleaning agents or handling. There's background noise in the measurements, like Kent said, radiocarbon dating relies on detecting very small amounts of C14 in a sample. So for diamonds, the observed C14 levels can fall within the background noise of the dating equipment. And another example I said is just misinterpretation of the data.
Okay, so surface contamination, lab contamination, background noise, and misinterpretation of the data, basically. Okay,
Yes.
Appreciate that, AJ. Kent, we'll throw it to you. Feel free to engage those points.
Well, obviously, he's admitting there are things that can cause a problem with. So, how do you know which ones to accept? They have to match your geologic column, which does not exist. They have to match your religion that a monkey or an amoeba turned to a human over millions of years. The problem is, even the way you cross-corroborate these things, all of those have fatal flaws, which we could have in another debate. We know, and you've admitted tonight, carbon dating does not work on quite a few different things. You have to select which ones you want to use it on. You have to already know it's less than 50,000 years old or it won't work. Why would you have to know such a thing? If it works, it works. Take a sample of dinosaur tissue to any lab and say, how old is it? Don't even tell them what it is. They should be able to carbon date it and say, well, this shows it to be 15 or 18 to 25,000 years old. They shouldn't even have to know where you found it or what it is. If it's a method that works, it works. And I'm telling
you're expecting it to be perfect, Kent. Why would you withhold information if you're trying to get something dated? It's like you're trying to you want them to get the date wrong.
No, I want to do an honest blind test.
How is it a blind test if you're intentionally withholding information about the sample? Like, that's obviously not a blind test. That's clearly biased.
Manipulating the results to your favor, Kent.
Yeah, it's exactly what he's doing.
If I tell them, hey, this bone was found in this strata and I believe it's 80 million years old, I'll pay $2,000 for this test. And I'll come back with a number within 80,000, please. Okay.
And of
It's
course,
not
the
a
claim of
blind test,
conspiracy.
AJ.
That's not how carbon dating is done at all.
It's not.
What? So stupid.
Yep.
It's prejudiced. It's already prejudiced. Just simply take a sample of coal, break it up in same rock. We got a bunch here. Break it up into 10 pieces, give it to 10 laboratories. Tell me, how old is it? Simple question. How old is it? They should be able to date it with their mass spectrometer in a couple hours. How many clicks per minute are you getting? Here's the problem they have in a chemistry test.
Pretty sure it takes longer than that. I'd love for somebody in the chat who knows about this or who can fact check this. How long does it take to test something with a spectrometer? Because Kent seems to think you can do it in a few hours. So I actually don't know, but like I said, I'm pretty sure it takes longer than that to run these type of tests.
Sure, somebody knows.
Okay. They find a sample of petrified wood has a decay rate of 6 counts per minute per gram. This is how they do it. It's the Geiger counter. Here it go, click, click, click. How many counts did you get per minute per gram? Okay.
Also, if anybody is familiar with Geiger counters, is his description of Geiger counters accurate here? Because we were questioning this in the part 1 of this debate review, which if you didn't see that, it's on Chris's channel, and Simon Dan showed up and he says that he likes my channel. So I can now die a happy man.
One of the things I want to point out here is that Kent seems to think that they just stand over a little sample of whatever and just have a little handheld meter and are just, got some guy just meticulously using like a hand clicker, like a fish or pitching counter. Be like click, click, click every time he hears one. And that's just how they base everything. Like, no, dude, it's totally different. I don't know exactly what the methodology is, but I know it ain't that.
So Captive Death says a typical mass spectrometry test, depending on the complexity of the sample and the specific technique used, can take anywhere from a few hours to a couple of days to complete. Interesting.
Sounds about right.
What's the age of the piece of wood? Well, they get 13.6 counts per minute today with living wood. So use this simple formula to how to find it. Okay, you can use the log if you like. There's other ways to do it. So they say it's 6,700 years old. Let's simplify it. A Geiger counter counts how many clicks per minute you get. Let's say the atmosphere today has 32. I chose that number because it's easy to divide many times. Okay. In 5,700 years, it's only going to have 16. I agree. Another 5,700 years later, it's only going to have 8, then 4, then 2, then 1. If a sample gives 1 click per minute, we think it's gone through 5 half-lives. Be compared to today's 32. Everybody else gives 32. So we think it's 28,000 years old. This is the decay rate. So we look at our calibration curve and say, yep, it matches. If before.
Okay, Kent, why is it that you're saying this, but at the same time you say you don't know that the decay rate is constant? But here you're saying that it's basically like this is how half-lives work.
Talking out
That
both
it's every
sides of his
50
mouth.
every 5,000 years, it decays by half. Well, you said that that's not. We don't know if that's constant. So, like you said, yeah, he's just talking out of both sides of his ass. Hovind?
For the flood, they had no C14 forming. Maybe they only had 4 to start with. We start with 32 when we die, and it decays from there. They started with 4 when they died. So it's going to look like it's really old when actually it's not, because the initial content, you don't know the initial content of any of the samples that you're dating.
But you just said that you know that humans have this much right when they're when they're alive. So if they just died, you're saying that you know the amount and the initial amount. So like, which is it, Kat? You're all over the place. It's ridiculous.
You know it doesn't work on coal. We know it doesn't work on living dinosaur tissue. We know it doesn't work on living marine organisms. You don't know the initial content of anything you find in the fossil record. You can't prove how much C14 was in the atmosphere 4,000 or 10,000 years ago.
Yes, we can, because ice cores contain air bubbles, and those air bubbles contain ancient atmosphere. So you can tell quite a bit from that. In your face, Kent. Chris, you're not muted, are you?
No. I'm just kind of letting things flow, and also on the side reading out on Geiger counters.
Okay.
Tree ring dating doesn't go back that far. It doesn't work, AJ. The purpose of the debate.
How do you know that there was no C14 forming back when you're saying that there was a layer of water around the Earth?
Well, we know that ice will stop radiation. Certain types of radiation, certain kinds of X-rays and gamma rays and beta rays cannot penetrate ice. So,
okay, chat, if you can fact check that one also, please. Thank you.
Pretty sure
it would be a theory. It would be my theory. The Bible.
Say that again.
I'm saying I'm pretty sure gamma rays will go right through it.
Yeah, I think he's correct about ultraviolet radiation, but
I'd say, yeah. I mean, alpha, your skin blocks that, no problem. Beta, you got, paper or a little bit of leather, that'll get through, or that'll stop stuff getting through.
We're talking
But
about
gamma,
water.
Yeah.
About radiation penetrating water or ice.
Well, with ice, I mean, he's talking about the 3-finger thick ice canopy, so I feel like there'd be enough energy to make it through. But
there would be just enough heat energy from the sun to melt the ice canopy if it was that thin.
This is true. Not to mention tidal forces.
Says there was water above the firmament. I believe that. We see evidence of people living a long time. Lots of historical records of people living to be 1,000 years old, the golden age kind of stuff,
Like what?
Like what? Like I just said it.
What? No, what's the evidence of people living 1,000 years?
Well, there are many historical anecdotes or records of people from India.
Anecdotes. So
I noticed that too. Anecdotes.
I meant to say this during the debate, but I figured that Kent would just accuse me of going off topic. But one reason that we know that it's bullshit to say that humans live to be 900 years old is that humans only get one set of adult teeth. We get baby teeth and we get our adult teeth. And a lot of people, when they're in their elderly years, they have dentures. There's no way, because we haven't found any skeletons, there's no way that somebody could live to be 900 years old with one set of adult teeth. They would be ground down to nothing. And we don't find skeletons that have any evidence of this kind of wear on people's teeth. I mean, just based on the fact that people can't make it to 100 years with one set of teeth. It's almost like, I wonder why God didn't design us like alligators who constantly get new teeth in. Like, if you ever look at an alligator or crocodile's teeth, they're pearly white because they're constantly having new teeth come in. Seems like it would have been a better. It seems like it would have been a better design. You know, would have saved us a lot of money and pain when it comes to dental work.
Yep.
From China, from non-Christian countries, they'd say, "Oh, there was a golden age." Just Google golden age. The Earth had a golden age when people lived to be 1,000. That's typical story from countries all over the world. That's not proof it's true. But the fact that all these people have these same legends indicate maybe there's something to it. The Bible says they live to be 900. I believe that's true. But see, I admit I believe by faith there was a canopy of water above because the Bible says there was one. The Jews have always taught this. They still teach it. 3 fingers thick, crystal and canopy. It does. The lines of evidence all merge together.
That's my ex-wife's favorite. 3 fingers thick. Harvard. So we were talking about this yesterday, Deviant Outcasts. We were wondering if archaeologists in Egypt carbon dated anything that they found, like in the tombs or the pyramids. I'm pretty sure that they did, but I'd be interested to hear what she thinks. Yeah, the link. Let me put the link in the chat again. Feel free to join Austin or anybody else within reason.
Together for that being true, because dinosaurs that are 80 feet long only had nostrils the same size as a horse's nostrils. How can an 80-foot animal get enough air through a little hole like that? They had to have compressed air, which a canopy would do, or richer oxygen, which we know the Earth had. Amber samples have 35% oxygen in them. So I cover all this in my seminar. All the lines of evidence merge to say one thing: the Bible is true. You're going to be judged one day by this book, whether you don't like it or not. So you can scoff at all you want, but the carbon dating doesn't work on a lot of things. You have to assume how much was in it when it died. You can't know that. You have to assume the decay rates never changed. We know that's not true.
Do you have an example of the decay rate changing?
I showed you samples from laboratories. They're saying, yes, we know what affects it. You said the decay rate can change.
The decay rate of the radioactive elements decaying. Do you have evidence of that changing?
I do, right in here someplace. Let's see.
Let me just pull it right out of my ass somewhere. It's lodged pretty deep in there, Alvin.
Yep.
You know, he just used the same excuse of either how do you know they didn't have sweet shark teeth or people were more perfect then? Yeah, that's true.
That's
Hello,
what I was
Austin.
thinking. Hey, buddy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Can y'all hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Well, it's great to be here. I'm sorry that I'm going to have to listen to Ken Hovind talk a little bit to help you guys break this debate down, but I'm excited to do that because AJ, I think you did fantastically in this debate, which is especially impressive because I don't think you knew about the heat problem before you went in, did you?
I did, but I didn't really get to it. I did want to bring it up, but like the debate just kept going over the same topics over and over again. I didn't really get to it until you had reminded me of it.
You know what? I think it's actually kind of perfect that you just mentioned it at the end, so that next time, if you do want to do another debate with Hovind, say, let's do the heat problem, because you'll crush him. They still can't solve it.
Yeah, there are a lot of aspects to the heat problem. Like The example that I like to give is just what I said. How just like just one your radioactive element. Like I pick uranium. Has a half life that I think is 4 billion years. It's in the billions of years. And so if you compress that decay rate down to 6,000 years, the amount of heat released would cook the Earth. And that's only one radioactive element. But there are other aspects to the heat problem, like Gutsick Gibbon has a great video where she gives other examples. I think Dr. Dan also has done videos about this. Do you know another example for the heat problem?
Me? My favorite is Erica, aka Gutsick Gibbon. She's done tons of videos about it. And I think my favorite thing about how many videos she's done about it is that they have unraveled Donnie's soul. Like Donnie has been trying in vain to put something compelling forth about the heat problem for like years now, and they have nothing. They still only have the 3 solutions that the rate team decided were not good enough, and those solutions were a deceitful god who built a universe that looks old just to mess with us, potential exotic super physics that can reject super physical amounts of heat that would break our understanding of physics, or they have to say it was magic. It was a miracle. God suspended the laws of the universe to make it work, which all 3 of those answers are hot, stinky cat duty. And even the creationists know it, which is hilarious because they'll argue with each other. They'll say, oh, we solved it with catastrophic plate tectonics, and the other one will say catastrophic plate tectonics makes no sense. We solved it with hydroplate theory, and then they say hydroplate theory makes no sense, and then before you know it, the creationists are fighting with each other. It's like that meme of the girls cat fighting at the beach, and there's a guy standing off to the side just smoking out of a bubbler, watching them just fucking brawl each other. We get to see the guy watching the chicks brawl while they fight over the heat problem. It's great.
Or the 2 Spider-Mans.
Yes.
Another one is that, like the hydroplate theory, they claim that the fountains of the deep shot water up from the crust of the Earth. That water would have been superheated and would have basically been steam. Yeah, would have cooked Noah's Ark.
Yeah, not even just the water. The radiation would destroy everything on a wooden boat. Wood doesn't reflect radiation, and this is part of where, they have to invoke miracles. God put a shield over the boat so none of the radiation cooked the animals inside, which, if you want to solve it that way, fine, but it's pointless for us to debate or talk about it anymore because it's completely unfalsifiable. I'm left at just having to take you at your word. Source, trust me, bro. It's pointless.
Right. Hello, Deviant.
Hey.
Hi. You asked the question, AJ.
Yes.
Are you there?
You want me to ask?
Yes.
Yeah. You want me to ask it again?
Yeah. Well, I missed part of. Yes, please.
Basically, we were doing this part 1 of this review on Karisu's channel, and we were asking, did they carbon date? Did archaeologists? Did they date archaeological objects that they found in the pyramids in Egypt or in the tombs of Egypt to find out how old they were?
So the answer about when it comes to pyramids, no, because no. If we're talking about the pyramids of Giza, there are much more. There are around 130 pyramids in all of Egypt. The pyramids of Giza, no, because there was no. So yes and no. Okay, there were no. The pyramids were empty. I'm sorry. I'm relatively newly woken up. I've just had breakfast. It's 8:30 at night here. But in the one of the pyramids of Pharaoh Sneferu, they found wooden beams that were used as part of the construction. those were carbon dated. Also, so the Giza plateau is, we often think of them as it's the three pyramids and then there's the Sphinx, but it's in actuality it's a huge like graveyard with temples and tombs and even a workers' village, and we have found the bones from the workers who built the pyramids. Some of those have been carbon dated. The thing with both carbon dating and DNA testing is that you have to destroy the sample you take. You have to destroy it to carbon date it or do a DNA test on it. So that's something that's very we tend to be very restrictive on doing because we don't want to destroy the material. So the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer you just heard me ramble on. Did I answer it? Was it comprehensive at all?
Yes. Yes.
Definitely.
And I'm gonna change my screen share really quick because I wanted to show you this painting I had done.
Ooh. Oh,
You might have commented on this one actually.
yes. I was gonna say I absolutely love it. I
Thank
think
you.
yeah, it says sci-fi or Dune. I really like the sense of like dust clouds with like not fire but something that's been ablaze in the background, and the dust cloud kind of sand cloud kind of blowing up. I also love, absolutely love the shading of the pyramids. You're a really good artist. I know I've told you before, but it needs to be said again.
Oh, thank you. I actually used tape I taped down the edges to get a clean edge on the pyramids because there's no way that I could, like with watercolor, get it
Oh,
like that. But
wh-
thank you.
what kind of, I have to ask, what kind of tape did you use?
I used regular painter's tape that you
Okay.
um, to for painting walls because Scotch tape will rip the paper.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking also. Like I I'm not sure what you call it in the US, but it looks like painter's tape, but it's much
Masking tape.
yes, that might be it.
Yeah.
It's
It's
kind of
similar.
papery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
But it
paint
has the
the tape I use is blue. Um,
oh
that
right,
helps.
yeah. I know the kind. Yeah, that's much better. Have you tried masking fluid?
No, but I am familiar with it.
So AJ, that painting kind of reminds me of a famous picture of the pyramids, and I've heard that that picture actually was achieved by photoshopping and photo cosmetic techniques because there's no actual angle in real life that you can achieve where you can get the pyramids to look exactly like that. Deviant might know more about that.
You mean view them in that
Yeah,
line?
yeah.
So they are standing in a straight line, depending on the uh, väderstreck.
The vantage point.
Yeah, the points on the campus Colibri, north, south, east, west.
Yeah,
The cardinal
Those.
directions.
yeah.
Thank you. Cardinal directions. Depending on how you stand. But I believe that you had the smaller the smallest of the three pyramids, which is the pyramid of Menkaure, which is I believe you had it in the middle.
I'll bring it back up because I was wondering if I was just thinking about this. If I had not made them like too close together, because
Yeah, if you're going with how they actually look,
yeah,
then yeah. And as Austin said, you cannot.
There's nowhere you could actually stand
No,
in real life around the pyramids where they look like that.
no.
yeah. Well, it is supposed to be kind of a fantasy image.
Yeah, I was gonna
For
say
sure.
but I have to say, I love that you have incorporated the missing top stone of the pyramid of uh, no, not Cheops.
Yeah.
Kefren.
Was it stolen or it got damaged or destroyed? I vaguely recall hearing that it was stolen.
Yeah, it was stolen. It was
That's
stolen.
crazy.
Yeah.
What a heist.
Right?
Isn't
I
there
keep
I
seeing
think
them
it was
using a toboggan. They went up to the top of the pyramid and they load the stone on and they just toboggan right down the side and
Whole thing all in
they were
one
gone.
piece.
yeah.
I watch a lot of cartoons.
Okay. I got you.
yeah. Doesn't that isn't there a Bible story about the cornerstone, like the stone that the builder rejected has
Yeah.
become the cornerstone? Is that for referencing a pyramid, or is that something else?
I think in that story, the building is metaphorical. The building is talking about you.
Okay.
Maybe the building was the friends we made along the way.
No, the cornerstone was inside you all along.
Ah,
Right.
All right. Let's get back to the debate.
Will you admit then you cannot know the initial content? You don't know how much was in it when it died, but you at least
No. I just have to say really quick, I hate Kent Hovind's use of the word admit throughout this debate.
Yeah.
I consider Kent Hovind to be somebody who gaslights people. And because he always says, like, oh, you think you came from Iraq, don't you? Don't
Yep.
you believe?
Yeah.
I consider that to be the type of language that abusers use. Like, oh, you did this thing, didn't you? Or like,
Yep.
It's trying to convince you that you did something that you didn't do, and saying, "Are you going to admit this?" To admit something means to, well, I'm admitting that this thing is true when I previously claimed that it was false. It's like you're coming clean. It's like I'm not going to admit anything because I don't. What you're saying is not what I think is true. It's not what I believe. It's really obnoxious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's okay to ask clarifying questions to say like, so what are you saying? Are you saying X? Correct? Question mark. You know, I would never say you're saying this. You know, it's pretty rude.
So when it comes to manipulators and abusers like Kent, using that sort of applying or telling someone how they feel and what they think and what they have said is kind of a hallmark of that. And it's absolutely 100% gaslighting. It's not asking for clarification. They say, do you say this? Do you think? That's a question. He's saying it as a statement, as a matter of fact, which makes that you have to defend something that you have not said and not done and not whatever the case may be. It's freaking textbook abuser talk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
for sure.
the comment you left on Grayson's debate where Kent was saying, you don't have a coherent religion, and you were like, that's right, because Grayson doesn't have a religion.
Right.
Yeah.
And just because your religion claims to have complete Gnostic knowledge doesn't mean it's coherent, and it definitely doesn't mean that's true. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Kent does this thing where because the Bible says we absolutely know this, that means we actually do absolutely know that, which is It's very circular. We absolutely know that because the Bible says we absolutely know that. How do we know we can trust that the Bible absolutely knows that? Because the Bible says we can trust it. It's a circular, it's turtles all the way down.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going. No, I
You
won't
won't admit
admit
that.
that because it's not true.
You do know how much was in it when it was alive 10 million years ago, or 50,000 years ago. Do you know how much
because
happened?
there
You
are
know how
ways
much
to cross-confirm it with
I
samples.
disagree. You're claiming that, okay? So you know how much C14 was in the atmosphere when the coal formed?
Not
right?
in the atmosphere, in the samples.
Okay, well, the samples got it from the air they're breathing. Okay, is it in equilibrium? Has it been contaminated? Things that affect the decay rate. Tree ring
Because
dating.
the fundamental laws of physics would have to change for the decay rate to change.
No,
We've never seen that.
No. Well, the decay rate, 5,730 years, is half of it to decay. Could there be something to speed that up, to make half of it decay in 10 seconds? Atomic bomb explosion.
If there is, we've never seen that happen.
Well, let's see. I did find stuff on that too.
Kent does not understand how atomic bombs work.
That's what I was about to say. He doesn't get it at all.
Every part of this is intellectually infuriating. One, he picks out coal as the material that disproves radiometric dating. We all know that coal gives off a ton of uranium decay. It gives off so much decay that coal processing plants are more irradiated than nuclear power plants. So he's picking out the worst substance, period, and everybody knows it. That's why you don't use these methods on that substance. And two, he's talking about accelerated nuclear decay, which even if you can achieve it, it's going to make the heat problem like 50 times worse. Oh, it's frustrating.
That's Kent for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hovind. I got it down another 5 degrees, Hovind.
Today, it's been a busy day around here, AJ. I have more to do than take care of you, but let's see. Carbon 14 percentage.
I just want to draw attention to my reaction to when Kent says this, so I'm going to replay this moment.
To speed that up, to make half of it decay in 10 seconds. Atomic bomb explosion.
If there is, we've never seen that happen.
Well, let's see. I did find stuff on that today. It's been a busy day around here, AJ. I have more to do than take care of you, but let's see. Carbon 14 percentage.
He's always going to add that in there, that it's been a busy day and he's doing so much.
So from what I understand, Dinosaur Adventureland, it's structured as a homeless museum or a homeless shelter.
Also,
it pretty much might as well be. I wouldn't be surprised if Kent was, freezing people in carbonite and putting them on display in there. Like,
Jesus Christ!
As a homeless shelter, which means he's taking in drug addicts, abuse victims, people who are fleeing domestic violence or cultural violence. He's taking in people who are at their lowest point in life, and then he's putting their brains into a blender and putting it on the highest setting. That's what he means when he has important stuff to do. He has to go gaslight and mindfuck people for Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's what cults do, is they seek out people who are mentally or emotionally weak, or in a place where they don't have a support network or a safety net.
Somehow vulnerable.
Yeah, emotionally or vulnerable, or financially vulnerable is a big one. Especially Kent wants them to depend on him financially, for sure, because then they have to do what he says, or like, well, you can go stand outside on the street in the cold.
Yeah. And we laugh about him a lot and talk about how silly he is, but that's actually completely despicable. Like that part of his thing isn't really funny at all. It's really gross and sad.
Oh yeah.
No, so that's the thing with Kent, as you said, Austin. We laugh about him because he's a silly old fart. Don't say that word. I was gonna say something else about his neck.
I knew it. Yeah, I knew it.
You can come on my channel and say all you want. I don't care.
Oh, you know what? After the last debate, I saw some people in his comments saying about me that I look like Aaron Ra and that I must be Aaron Ra's son. And I think they thought that was an insult, but I could not be more complimented, you know? Aaron's such a cool guy.
Well, have you seen Aaron Ra's son?
He's a big guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
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 They're both big fellows.
Yeah. I've met
But I
Aaron
think
Ra.
that's kind of ironic, right? Creationists looking at two organisms that look morphologically similar and assuming they're related. I assume that never happens otherwise, though. That's the first time that's ever happened.
I like this screenshot of me.
It was at this moment AJ had given up completely.
Yeah, it's just me dying on the inside of having to listen to Kent.
Your eyes are almost glazed over, tired, longing for the sweet release of death.
Yeah.
Kent's
Yeah.
blathering is coma-inducing.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. All right, we got a full house now. Hello,
Holy moly.
English Prostate and Mr. Logo.
Hi guys.
Hi.
How's
Hello.
everybody doing?
AJ, hi, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Deviant, Kurisu, I like your videos.
Thank you.
Welcome.
He is
All right.
very good. Not
Well,
as good
let's,
as AJ, of course. Sorry, Chris.
Well,
I have
I
to
inspired Kurisu apparently.
Yeah. That was you were the one, man. You were the one who was like, okay, I can do this and I can just be stupid about it. You know, funny, have it go.
Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that somebody like Kent, who's very like uptight, like he jokes around, but he is very uptight. Like when it comes to swearing, and like he has rules at DAL where he's like, oh, women who go swimming have to wear a dark T-shirt after they get out of the water and stuff. And so like it a lot of people who were forced to watch his stuff when they were younger and now reject it. It doesn't surprise me that they find it satisfying for somebody, especially an atheist or somebody who's irreverent, to just tell Kent like, oh, shut the fuck up, Kent, or just take him down a peg.
Yeah.
And I take pride in helping sort of popularize that as a genre on YouTube. I'm not the first to do it, but I love those type of videos. So it doesn't surprise me that people enjoy that type of content,
So after Grayson did his last debate with Kent, where he was calling Kent a cult leader to his face for like an hour and a half, which was phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. After that, he did another interview where he had a bunch of former members from Dinosaur Adventureland, like Mark Stoney, and he was asking them, about stories about what it was actually like there. And one of the ones that really stuck with me was I heard a story where Kent went in and he dragged a woman out of bed at like 3 or 4 in the morning to make her go do the dishes.
Yeah.
Insane. That's so misogynistic, so patriarchal, so culty, like really messed up.
Did you hear about him going into the room of a 14-year-old girl where she was sleeping and Kent flipped the bed over and flipped her out of bed and then poured water on her?
Yep.
Yeah, dude. There was a bunch of crazy stuff like that. There was so much crazy stuff. It was hard to hold on to. But yes, now that you say that, I remember that coming up there. It's so crazy. I can't believe people can't see that this thing is a cult. It's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, well, Grayson's
Well, and women are
went to
property
DAL.
in his mind.
Yeah.
Grayson's video where he went to DAL is what convinced me that it was a cult, because I wasn't sure, even with all the videos I've done on DAL. That's when I was really convinced that it truly was.
Grayson said that when he was going to leave Dinosaur Adventureland, Kent pulled him aside and gave him this totally unhinged speech that ended with Kent telling Grayson that when Grayson dies and he gets to the gates of heaven, he's going to see Kent there waiting for him.
Well, that's not exactly what he said.
Something like that, yeah.
He said, when you're done climbing the mountain of truth, you'll see that I was there. I was already there at the top, basically.
And that got me thinking, how great would it be? I mean, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. But if there is a God, and when Kent dies and he gets to heaven, every atheist that he's debated is standing there waiting for him. with God himself standing in front of a blackboard full of biology facts about to explain to Kent that all these atheists he spent his whole life debating were right.
I mean,
Oh,
people
Right.
like
Amazing.
Kent makes me wish that there was a God and that
mhm.
there was a hell, and not specifically for the hell part of it, but just to see Kent's face when he's turned away, and then
Yeah.
see him groveling and like, no, please, but I've
Yeah.
served you. I brought so many to you.
Yeah. And my grandpa, he was a Jewish man and a professor of Jewish studies at Columbia University, a very brilliant man. And he liked to tell this joke about four rabbis debating, one rabbi's debating three rabbis, and the one rabbi is certain he's right, and the other three are just, shouting him down, refusing to hear his points, countering him every which way. And then finally, God himself comes down, right? And he booms out, "He's right. The one rabbi is right." And, the one rabbi, so excited, God himself came down and affirmed my beliefs. To which the three rabbis look at him and they go, "Okay, so what? Now it's 3-2."
That was interesting to hear that how Ken suddenly said, there's a lot to do around here.
Yeah.
When he's actually trying to run from, you're not the only one. We have more to do here. When AJ, when you asked him, right, about the change of decay rates.
Yeah.
That's a way of running, right? That,
I think-
I have more to do than, right?
Yeah.
There's more deflection.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going.
Gotta get there. The sunspot cycle impacts it. Okay. 1188. That's more the
That's the rate of C14 forming. I'm talking about the decay rate of actual radioactive elements, like how long the half-life is. We haven't seen that change.
They've only measured these half-lives in order to determine, did somebody watch it for 5,730 years, or did they watch it for 6 weeks or a year and then extrapolate?
Now, AJ, pause real quick.
Would you?
Now, earlier, Kent said that we watch uranium decay into lead all the time. And how long does that take?
4 billion years.
Yeah. So, which is it, Kent? Can we watch it or can't we?
I'll admit his question stumped me a little bit. I will admit that.
And interestingly, in that case, his candle analogy doesn't work because they are not measuring the mother isotope, right? The parent isotope. They measure the daughter isotope, which is lead.
Yeah.
And which is in these crystals, in these zircon crystals, and they only crystallize with uranium and other elements like thorium, but they don't crystallize together with lead. So they know that it's 0 at start with an error rate, but every measurement has that, right? With that argument, he could throw a weighing out and say it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty wild when you extrapolate his logic, how just absolutely broken it is.
Yeah.
Agree. Nobody watched it for 5,700 years. Do you agree with that?
No, because human lifespans aren't that long.
So nobody watched it for 5,700 years. So how did they determine that decay rate to be 5,730 years? They watched a sample for a short time in the laboratory and then did the math and extrapolated. I understand how that works, okay? And so nobody's watched it for 5,700 years. Let's see, Earth's magnetic field, that's C14 formation. They said in here someplace that the radiation, well, you said it can be contaminated by laboratory instrument they're using itself.
Do you see the changing of the topic?
Yes, for sure. He's dancing around to another topic. I want to address the logic of nobody sat around and watched the decay rate. For that logic is kind of like saying, I've seen somebody giving birth to a baby, and I've seen old people, but nobody's ever sat around and watched a baby become an old person. It's impossible. It's so stupid, you know?
Or like, I've put $5 of gas in my tank, but I've never filled up my tank.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever filled up their gas tank. Like,
Nobody's ever watched the continents move, so tectonic drift must be wrong, even though we can measure the difference in their locations after they have moved. It's so idiotic.
When I weigh my
We
groceries,
need to watch it happen, that the phenomena itself needs to be repeatable and observable in its entirety, which it's like, no, the tests that prove it need to be repeatable and observable, and they are.
when I
No,
weigh my
he-
groceries, the gravity could change in between. Hovind.
Yes.
I appreciate the attempt at the Hovind meme. So,
All right.
Hovind.
Some
Or
people
by,
were sorry.
external sources like sun's radiation or stellar radiation.
Did you want to add something, Austin?
Oh no, I was gonna say some people were saying in the comments on my debate with him that I was pronouncing his name wrong. It's Hovind, right? Hovind. He didn't correct me,
Hovind.
so I don't think he minded.
I've heard both, but usually it's Hovind and not Hovind, but I've heard both.
So it's Hovind if you go. It's a Norwegian name, so it's definitely Hovind.
Okay.
Doesn't it have 2017 at the end?
That's his prisoner number. Doesn't it have square pants at the end?
Can't you imagine you weren't in prison for 9 years, but you were 0645
Right.
2017.
I wasn't in prison. Never happened.
That's the one thing Kent cannot lie about, that he went to jail. Even Kent can't lie about that. He has to admit.
Right. He just had to immediately shift the blame to anyone but himself.
Yeah.
It was all a conspiracy.
One of my favorite things is Kent saying that DAL moved from Pensacola to Lennox. We just
Yeah.
moved. We
Talk
moved,
about a
like, by choice.
misrepresentation of the facts. That is not what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Alrighty.
We know it can be, that could knock the sample all to pieces. So that would be the decay rate. If
No,
there's,
that's
well,
that's the rate.
contaminating.
That's the rate of C14 forming in the atmosphere.
Okay.
That's different.
Well, that's contaminating the sample.
Yeah.
so
Do you
I
think
w-
scientists don't know about contamination and these assumptions? Do you think that you're the only person who knows about this?
Oh, both of us showed tonight examples where it does get contaminated very easily. You're dealing with a real tiny amount, like just a few atoms, a few little
Right.
atoms. Okay, just a tiny amount. And you're trying to prove something millions of years old from that decaying. Half of it's gone.
No.
You can barely
Not
count what
millions.
you've got.
Okay,
Okay,
so I'll
thousands
ask my
of it.
question again. If these methods don't work, do you have an alternative for how we can date things?
Oh, yeah. Right here. God said he made everything in 6 days. God said there was a flood 4,400 years ago. That
So
Oh, yeah.
but his
End
way
of
of
conversation.
dating, his way of dating is relying of a, I believe, 17th century, maybe it's 16th century English bishop who couldn't count for shit.
Usher.
1611.
Usher.
Yep. It's an Usherian timeline. There's tons of gaps in it. One of the biggest gaps is in the familial line of Shem and Levi. There's a 1200 to 2400 year gap there, and there's a bunch of other ones. And Kent wants to talk about how bad our dating method is. What a hypocrite. AJ, I just want to say, you must have the discipline of a Tibetan monk that you didn't explode laughing when you asked him, what's your dating method? And he held up the Bible. I would have died laughing.
Well, I have a YouTube short that I could show you where I definitely do that watching one of his videos. But in my opinion, this is where I won the debate, was this moment.
Yes, for sure.
Definitely.
Just that answer. And he says it with confidence, like it's just illogical. Like how are you going to date anything using the Bible? It just doesn't make sense.
I've started to formulate a theory that Kent doesn't change his script and he keeps his arguments kind of stupid on purpose. I'm calling it the Nigerian prince theory. Are you guys familiar with the Nigerian prince emails?
Oh
They
yes.
send out these copy pasty, really god awful looking emails full of
Horrible
spelling
English.
errors, claiming it's sent from a Nigerian prince who needs your help getting his money back out of some bank or what have you. And people fall for them. They still fall for these scams. And you would think that after all this time that the scam would have gotten more sophisticated, that they would have like, you know, real official looking Nigerian royal email layouts, and there'd be no typos, and there'd be a website you can go to and actually interact with. No, they keep them kind of stupid. They keep them kind of goofy looking. They keep them full of spelling errors, because that way the people who respond to them are the dumbest and easiest to fleece people.
Absolutely.
I think Kent is kind of using that same technique a little bit. When he
Oh,
holds up his Bible, he knows only the absolute dumbest and most easy to brainwash people are compelled by that. Hovind.
So it also plays on people who are believers, who feel that they have to agree with the Bible. They might have been sitting there like, nah, I'm not really sure about what this guy is saying. Then he picks up the Bible, and their what's the word? Not conscience, but the pressure builds up that they
peer
have
pressure.
to agree
Yeah,
with.
and
Yeah.
there's a fear element too, because the people,
Exactly.
especially the people that are living with him, don't want to be the person who doesn't go along and toe the line. There are consequences for that kind of thing. So yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure, there's a fear aspect, and there's also a just general lack of intelligence aspect, because he controls the information that his people receive.
Okay, I'm gonna play this short.
One topic at a time. Can you provide any evidence whatsoever that there was a canopy above the earth at this time?
Yes, I can.
What's that?
The Bible says there was one.
I mean that I'm sorry, that just sums it up right there, doesn't it?
Who needs
does.
evidence and facts
Yeah.
when you've got the
Yeah.
Bible?
Oh man.
Well, if the Bible
Hey,
says
you little
so,
rascal.
consider my mind changed. It's like they do that a lot. They say things like, the Bible says so, this physicist says so. And every time you can call their bluff and just be like, oh, wow, really? They say so? Well, you know, if they say it, must be true, you know?
Yeah.
Then I wonder if he actually had to use the Bible for values like pi is then 3, right? And I wonder how far he will get for space exploration or for anything with using exactly that value, right?
Yeah.
And then the change of goalposts starts. Oh, it's not like, oh, it's like it's spiritual, which means it not really, and so on, right? Or with how to cure leprosy, right? Dip a
Yeah.
bird in the
Right.
blood of another one. Then he should really get stuck with all, not only this specific one, but all the dumb nonsense that this book is spitting out.
Yep. All right, let's continue.
Flood, it would make all the coal in 1 year. That flood made all the layers that we see that you guys claim are different ages, and we know they're not, from petrified trees connecting all of them, polystrata fossils. We know they're not. See, AJ, you don't want that book to be true.
What's
I
the
know.
age of layers then? If they're all the same age, do you know what that age is?
Yeah, about 4,500 years when Noah's flood took place, all the layers were formed, I believe. I think there's all kinds of ways to cross-confirm that if you wanted to have a different debate. But tonight you're supposed to be defending, does carbon-14, here we go, right here, is carbon-14 reliable? Why should it be reliable when you admitted it doesn't work on some things? It doesn't work on over half the fossils, marine organisms. Hey, who are you? Nick, Google, how many fossils are marine? What percentage of fossils are marine organisms? Okay. It doesn't work on living things, and I don't see any reason why it shouldn't.
Would you
That's
use a
the
ruler to tell the temperature, Kent?
You're missing the point. If the atmosphere today contains a certain amount of C14, you're assuming that the plants have the same amount. They probably do. And the animals that eat the plants have the same amount. And when they die, it stops taking more in, so it only begins to decay. That's the whole dating method. So it should work on everything alive. What does it say? 95% of the fossils are marine organisms.
That's okay, but you would agree with me that you wouldn't use a ruler to tell the temperature, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's completely off
Okay,
topic.
so that's a limitation of the method. That doesn't mean
No,
the
no,
method
no.
itself doesn't work.
I'm telling you the ruler doesn't work because it should be 5,730. I mean, it should be a 0.0000765% in living organisms. It should be in every. There shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to make any exceptions.
Why
It
should it be
works
the same in all organisms?
Because that's all organisms are breathing the air and using it. All plant organisms are. They're taking in C14, making it part of their tissue. Animals are eating those plants, making it part of their tissue. You and I have C14 in us, a little tiny amount, probably the same amount that's in the air that the plants are breathing. I wouldn't argue about that. So if you, why do you have to wait till I die to carbon date me? Carbon date it today.
Because some of the C14 has to decay for the method to work, Kent.
No, you should get a zero number if it's got the same amount in what you're dating and the same amount in the atmosphere. It worked. You got a zero. It's 0 years old. You shouldn't have to wait for it to die.
What would be the point? What would be the point of dating something that's alive?
It doesn't, because I just want to do it. Okay, what's the point of going to the moon? You hit a golf ball. I mean, come on, spend billions of dollars to go hit a golf ball on the moon. Who cares? What's the point? Well, what's the point of this whole debate tonight?
There are lots of reasons to go to the moon.
Well, go ahead.
Can I have a moment?
As long as you're paying for it. I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, just let this finish.
Anyway, that's a different. That's a different.
I thought you liked science, Kent.
I love science, but I'm not in favor of spending billions of dollars to go hit a golf ball on the moon. Okay, this is.
I just want to say, wants to talk about hitting a golf ball on the moon. Alan Shepard did that during Apollo 14, snuck some stuff on board, got the golf club end onto a camera apparatus, did it for fun. They didn't exactly want him to. This man will not talk shit about Alan Shepard. Up yours, Kent.
Yeah, I think that's incredible that somebody was able to hit a golf ball on the moon. And it is significant because it probably cost NASA like $10,000 for him to bring that on because of how much it weighs.
Yep, which also makes him doing that kind of dangerous. But he was brave and did it anyways.
It was counted in the personal effects that they could bring with them.
Oh, okay.
It's like God, Buzz Aldrin had brought a communion set with him and did communion on the moon.
Yeah, because if they had added too much weight, it would have thrown their calculations off.
Yeah, so it was in the calculations of stuff that was accounted for in the personal effects. So that was at least okay, but it's still the principle that, hey, he did that. That was just kind of neat, You go to the moon and you're going to hit a golf ball for the heck of it. And it still provided valuable science of like, okay, we could see where the thing went. Like you can see where it landed.
I bet it was the absolute best drive of his life too, because the ball weighed so much less.
Yeah, no air resistance.
Yep.
Yeah. I would love for NASA to send people back to the moon.
Physics, Kent Hovind.
I think it's very telling of Kent. That's why I asked him, like, don't you like science? Because he literally was he was able to watch the moon landing. Like, I would have loved to have been able to watch that live.
Yeah,
and
totally.
He's minimizing the scientific accomplishment, but he claims to love science. I just think that's ridiculous.
And he's honestly acting like NASA just went there just for the golf ball shot. Like that there's no other experiments at all. And who believes that? And if somebody, like you said, he's so big into science and loves NASA so much, that's not true, Kent. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you guys might have made this point on the previous video, but like Kent lived through the Cold War. He was a young man during the Cold War. And during the Cold War, America was doing a lot of science to stick it to the Ruskies. We wanted to be better than them. We wanted to get to the moon. We wanted to have a better space program. We wanted to have better science education. And I think Kent is kind of being pulled in two different directions. He thinks, by being a creationist, he's defending God and he's, spreading love of God. But also he does kind of love science. He does think science is cool because he went through that cultural period. And it kind of does seem to give him some cognitive dissonance sometimes.
Definitely.
And there's another disconnect in his so-called canopy, ice canopy theory,
Yeah,
right? Because
right.
the original is spanned over a flat plane, right? Not the sphere. That Hebrew worldview.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, I have to point out, Kent has my last name on his slide, and Donnie told him in the last debate that not to do this. So, and Kent said it in his new video. I don't even care at this point, but it's just just shows.
Yeah, he said it
how
multiple
childish he is.
times the very next night on his open mic. It was like 3 times in a minute. Yeah, it was a little much.
It just, I'm like, what's your argument, Kent? Like, provide a good argument. Is this like, this is what you have to resort to because you don't
personal
you
attacks.
can't
That's all he
argue.
has.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad.
Screw you, Kent.
I'm not a cult leader.
Right.
It's not a cult.
Something that the government should not be involved in. What that's a different story. Okay, politics.
Yeah, Kent's not a cult leader. He doesn't have a cult of personality. He just has his name written 5 times.
But the fact is, Donnie, I think you get it. I'm hoping. Let's get some audience questions if you can. Is anybody else getting it? Why won't it work on living organisms? It should work on anything. It's carbon 14, which we have in us, and if the atmosphere is 0.0000765%, I should be the same, and you should be the same, and the laboratory should be able to show that. It should come up, hey, this guy's still, take a sample, take your fingernail or hair or something, and take it into a laboratory. Say, here, carbon date this. It should come up with, hey, this is still alive or very, very, very recently dead. Not long enough to get a difference. It's real simple math, AJ, real simple.
Gentlemen, I will say we are a minute over on the discussion because it was so fast-paced and engaging as always with you two. Appreciate these debates. So why don't we do this? AJ, if you think it's fair, you started the discussion. Therefore, we'll have Kent end the discussion here. But there might be a couple things you want to respond to, and we want to give you both the opportunity to leave no stone unturned, address anything you feel has been left hanging. So let's do this as I organize our audience questions. We've got a lot, and so we're going to have some fun with those. We'll have 3-minute closing statements. Good time to wrap up our thoughts. And
how many microphones does Donnie have? I count 5.
Yeah.
Why does he have so many microphones? He should give me one.
So I actually friended Donnie on Facebook to start networking with them to make some of these debates that I've been doing happen. And I asked him, is creationism your full-time job now? And I never got an answer from him, but I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. And this is a big part of the different hurdles our different groups that are kind of clashing against each other face. For creationism, there's an assload of money in this game. They get a ton of donations. They get money from their supporters. They throw money at Kent and Donnie. For people who are fighting pseudoscience, I don't really think there's that much money in it for them. Like the big people, like Erica with their 100,000 followers, and maybe, some of the other big ones, they might make a little bit of money doing it. But there's really not that much money in fighting pseudoscience, but there's a ton of money to be made in peddling pseudoscience. Really sucks for us.
For sure. But does that not speak to the reason that a lot of us are here, though? Because there's not that incentive. It is genuinely, at least for me, and I think for a lot of you guys too, we want to help educate and help protect people from these environments in the first place, point them out so that other people don't, end up following his lead. So I think it speaks to, why most of us do this, to be honest.
Absolutely. Fight the brain, y'all.
I'm in it for the money. So send me super chats. Send super chats.
Hey, at least he's honest about it.
All about the Benjamins.
I don't want to sound sappy, but the reason I do this, money.
I like money.
Money.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm still here for the Benjis.
Well, I will say that my audience has been very generous over the years, me doing this channel. So I will disagree a little bit, but not, it doesn't compare. Like you said, it's about the comparison.
Yeah.
All righty, we're on to the Q&A. So I want to finish this. So let's power through some of these questions.
How about we do 3 minutes, and then that'll give us plenty to comment on.
Well, I think I'll just pause it after each question, and we can give our comments. I think that makes sense, right?
Sure.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Points for tonight, gentlemen. Excellent discussion, and I really enjoyed this debate on carbon dating. I like picking one topic, one point, and then doing a whole debate on it. Very good. So AJ, let's hand it to you. I'll reset the timer, and you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, again, my argument in this very repetitive debate is just that while there are limits to radiocarbon dating and other radiometric dating methods, that doesn't mean that the methods themselves are invalidated. And if you use a method to measure something the wrong way, you're likely going to get a wrong result. And that just shows that you're using it the wrong way. It doesn't show that the method itself is invalidated. And I think that's not a great way to show that something doesn't work. Now, my point would be, what about the samples where we know the age, we know how old something is, and then it's dated and that age matches? Why would that occur if the method doesn't work? And Kent's alternative to carbon dating seems to just be trusting the Bible. Well, which version of the Bible? There's multiple versions of it. How is that going to be a better way of dating things than a modern scientific method that's done in the laboratory, when the Bible is an archaic holy book that doesn't change? The science can only be as advanced in the Bible as it is at the time that it was written, which was the Bronze Age. So I don't see how that's going to be a better way of dating things than modern scientific methods that are done in a laboratory. As for the limitations like contamination and the assumptions that are inherent to the method, again, this is something that scientists account for. They're aware of it. It doesn't stop the method from being able to be used. Science is it is difficult to date these things. You are dating a very small amount of the element that's in there. That doesn't mean that it's impossible for it to work. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to Donnie and Kent for doing this debate with me, and Donnie for hosting it. So that'll do it for me.
Thank you, AJ, for that 3 minute concluding statement. We'll reset the timer. Kent, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
All right. And thank you, AJ, for coming again tonight. I agree with how.
Just real quick, I want to read Regios' super chat for $10. It says, "I see no problem in making a little something while fighting pseudoscience." Well, thank you for the donation, Regios.
2 thumbs up, Regios.
He's one of the people that I mean when I talk about people who've been very generous, like him and Roshina and all my people on Patreon. My Patreon is patreon.com/atheistjunior. If you want to support the channel, check it out. And I have channel memberships too.
Do it.
How
Do it
carbon
now.
14 forms. I don't argue with that. Radiation from the atmosphere, from the sun, strikes it. However, if the Earth had a crystalline canopy overhead, like the ancient legends teach and like the Bible teaches, then they wouldn't have much, because that would stop most of it. So I agree that the atmosphere today contains 78% nitrogen, mostly nitrogen, some oxygen, a little tiny bit of CO2, and a real tiny bit of radioactive CO2. Very tiny amount, okay? That combines with the other CO2, and the plants are breathing it, and they don't care whether they breathe radioactive carbon or regular carbon. I'm talking carbon dioxide, okay? I agree. Now, I agree with how it forms. I agree with the theory that it's going to decay. You and I have C14 in our body because we've either eaten plants or eaten animals that have eaten plants. So they assume that the amount in the world today is the same in all living plants and animals. That is the assumption that it's based on. They assume the living organism should have the same. Atmosphere's got 0.000765. You and I probably should have the same amount. I agree with that. Now, let's see. I got way too much to cover here. Okay. This article said, with their short half-life, no carbon-14 atoms should exist in anything older than 250,000 years. Some sources say 60, some say 90, okay? It's proven impossible to find any natural source of carbon below the Ice Age strata, which is no such thing, that does not contain significant amounts of C14. Even though the strata are supposed to be millions or billions of years old. The coal, the diamonds, they're supposed to be a lot older than that, but they've still got carbon-14. Laboratories are aware of this since the 1980s, and they've tried to eliminate it, but they're unable to account for it. The world's best such laboratory learned during 2 decades of low C14 measurements, I mean measuring to the atoms, how not to contaminate externally. Under contract to creationists, confirmed the observations for coal samples and a dozen diamonds. They cannot be contaminated in situ with recent carbon. Diamonds cannot. These constitute very strong evidence the Earth is only thousands, not billions of years old. But when they take when they take a dinosaur that has a soft tissue, carbon dated, and it gives a number of a few thousand, rather than say, maybe the dinosaur isn't millions of years old, they question the dating method. They're not willing to consider, not willing to question their premise that the Earth is billions of years old and dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, because that fits the pattern that they want. It's all based on the assumption that the atmosphere has reached equilibrium. We know it has not. If you pump water and pour water into a barrel and it leaks out the other side, at some point you're never going to fill the barrel past the point, okay? Earth's atmosphere, C14 equilibrium. It should reach equilibrium in 30,000 years. Well, Earth's atmosphere has still not reached equilibrium. Well, then we know the Earth is less than 30,000 years old, and my time is up. Watch my video number 7, AJ. Come on, better yet, come down to Dinosaur Adventureland. Let's have the debate right here, and we'll show you around DAL. We'd love to have you, okay? Thank you.
And I'll sit right in between you guys and moderate a 7th debate. Or wait a minute, was this debate number 7, AJ? Or this was 6, right?
Depends if you count the open mics, but
that's true. If you count the open mics, this was debate number 100. So yeah, you guys are best friends by now. AJ, Kent, appreciate those closing statements. Comprehensive debate on carbon dating. That's what we need. So I appreciate it, guys. All right, let's get into some audience questions. We have many very much on topic questions. And so this should be good. We'll start at the beginning here with Shepard. $5 super chat. Appreciate the support and question for tonight's debaters. He says it's a question for both. So Kent, you just ended with your concluding statement. AJ, if you don't mind, I guess we can start with you here. So he is asking, is there any dating method that consistently produces ages from 6,000 to 10,000 years?
That specific time frame, I'm going to say no, because carbon dating, as far as I know, is the sort of the youngest bracket of ages that they find when it comes to radiometric dating. Dating methods other than radiometric dating, possibly, but for that specific range of years, I'm going to say no. Not that I know of.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Kent, go ahead.
I'm going to say absolutely yes. If you look at my video number 1, called The Age of the Earth, how to prove the Earth cannot be billions of years old, get the whole series for $50, 18 hours. When you're done watching it, return it and get your money back, okay? For instance, the erosion rate of Niagara Falls shows it's only been eroding for less than 5,000 years. The ice rings, those are not annual rings. I talked to the guy who melted the hole down to get to the airplane from World War II, and he said there were hundreds of rings above the airplanes that landed 48 years earlier. They're not annual rings. They're summer, winter, summer, winter. I think the thickness of the ice at the poles indicates way less than 10,000 years. I think the amount of salt in the oceans are getting saltier. Today, they're 3.6%. At the rate they're gaining salt from all the rivers running off the continents, they could have done that in less than 5,000 years. That gives a good age. The salt in the oceans, the oldest ancient historical records, the oldest language that we have, the fact that the moon is receding from the Earth, the fact that the sun is burning up its fuel, the human population growth curve. Yes, there are many, many indications that the Earth is 6,000, 10,000 years. In 1810, there was only 1 billion people in the world. Today, there's 8 billion. People who do the calibration curve will say, look, you could have started with 8 people getting off the ark 4,400 years ago. So the very population of the Earth is an indication. We've not been here for millions of years. It's not like they didn't learn how to make babies, for millions of years. What on earth? Refresh your presentation, making changes. Okay, forget, I don't know. Keep the changes, keep mine. Okay, there. Anyway, So yes, I'll answer that in the affirmative. Yes, there are many scientific indicators that the Earth simply is not billions. If it is, why hasn't the population increased, or the salt in the ocean, or the erosion rates, or the continents are eroding into the sediments in the ocean are building up? The moon is getting further away. The sun is burning up its fuel. Yes, there are lots of. Watch my video number 1. I'm sorry for taking so long. Go ahead, Donnie.
Okay, first off, is this a debate or an infomercial?
It's always an infomercial with Kent.
He's got to pay for that arc.
Buy one Jesus, get two free.
This is a total gish gallop. The question was not, is the Earth millions of years old? It was, is there a specific dating method that produces ages from 6,000 to 10,000 years, which there's really not one for that exact range of dates. The person is asking because I think they're a younger creationist and they want to say, is there a method that ranges in this year? Even if there was, that would not prove that the Earth is that old. And as for Kent saying that we don't know if ice core layers represent 1 year each, they represent each layer represents summer or winter. Snowfall varies by seasons, and the summer snow is coarser due to melting and refreezing versus winter snow, which is fine grained and more compacted. And they can also tell based on the hydrogen and oxygen isotopes what the temperature was when the snow fell. And this is irrelevant to my point anyway, because my point with the ice cores was that we can tell what the carbon-14 content of the atmosphere was a long time ago because of the air bubbles in the ice cores. And that's irrelevant to the layers. Go ahead.
So that was a very dense section there. There was a lot to unpack there, and I can tell you that because as I was watching, I was taking notes, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got almost a dozen notes. I'm not going to bother trying to get to all of them, but yeah, there were a couple things. One thing I want to start with, AJ, when you told Donnie, thanks for setting up this debate, thanks for having me. I feel like sometimes other people on our team, a little bit, they're kind of critical of atheists when they're nice to Kent. Like when I debated him, a bunch of people in the comments were being like, why is this guy being nice to Kent? And I think it actually is somewhat useful. It's something I would call building a rapport. When you build a rapport with someone, they're more likely to take your points seriously. They're more likely to really think about them and really try to respond to them respectfully. And I tried to do that a little bit. And I think that's what you were doing there, maybe. So why I bring that up is, as I want to say to atheists who kind of condemn other atheists for sometimes being nice to the people they debate, give us some slack a little bit, I would say. We're trying to work an angle. We probably agree with you, but we're trying to accomplish something.
I didn't think you were being that nice to Kent when I watched it. So
I was being very sarcastic.
I agree that with what you're saying, but also there are some debates where I think I get annoyed with the person being too nice to Kent if they're doing it in a way where it seems like the person doesn't really know that much about Kent or isn't experienced with his rhetoric or his debate tactics. If they're kind of naive to that and they think that Kent is, that's when it annoys me, when they're being nice because they don't know how dishonest Kent is. But
fair point.
I don't think that that's what you were doing. So I don't agree with those commenters.
And then another thing I want to address, he said something that he says a lot. He said the they don't care argument. He says this a lot. Plants don't care if they're breathing. Animals don't care what they call them. And I think literally every time he uses it, he's completely freaking wrong. Plants absolutely do care what kind of reactants they're taking in from their environment. It's essential to their survival that they have the right atmospheric composition around them. Otherwise, they won't be able to perform a little thing called photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is the little thing that keeps literally every living thing on this planet alive. So yes, they absolutely do care, Kent. And then he likes to also say they don't care about how we categorize species. Animals, living organisms, choose what their species is by choosing what they will try to mate with, Kent. They absolutely do care. So That it drives me crazy when he says that. And it's kind of a theme with him that he makes these really like kind of convoluted arguments that sound like they might kind of be right, but when you look into them, they almost never are.
Yeah, well, it's like I told you, my dog would care if I categorize him as a good boy or a bad boy.
Yeah.
You know?
One thing I want to ask too, what is Donnie's thing with wanting everybody who comes on his channel to be best friends with Kent?
I don't know. I think he's more joking with me just because I have a history with Kent, but does he do that with everyone who comes on?
Yeah, he did it to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
He did it to Grayson.
He wants people to come back on. He wants people to debate Kent because it's good for his channel.
Yeah.
Which, I can't knock the hustle. I don't hate on Donnie for what he does. But like I said, I think he's moderated my debates fairly, but he doesn't always do that. So, I think that he should moderate everyone's debates like he does mine, where he's kind of hands off. But when he's with Redefined Living, that goes out the window.
Yeah. So, and to get into the actual content, the question was, are there dating methods which produce 6,000 to 10,000 years dates? Yeah, because there's dating methods that go all the way down to like a few years long half-life, or even shorter than that. But that just means you can only accurately date something that's up to that old with that method. Does that make sense? There are dating methods that are like septillions of years long decay rates, and those aren't really good for like dating anything because they have such a long decay rate. No, most of those isotopes won't even be close to having enough daughter decay to measure, or daughter material. But there are dating methods, there are isotopes that decay very, very quickly. Those might produce 6,000 to 10,000 year dates, but it's not accurate. It's a limit of that particular material if you're using it as a radiometric clock.
Anybody
Does
else?
that make sense?
Yeah. Anybody else want to add a comment before we move on?
Yes. I wonder why that guy asked the question in that way, because it's already an attempt to wiggle through with, well, if they say 6,000 years, then stay with 6,000, not like asking, could it be 6 to 10? If they claim 6,004 years or something, then when someone finds something that is 7,000, it's already out. It's an attempt to change the goalposts already. Oh, it's not actually 6,000. It can be 7 or 8 or 8,500 or 9 or 9,367. That is a dumb question. Sorry, I have to say that.
What about 6969?
Yes, for example.
Nice.
Look at this guy's name and avatar. That'll tell you all you need to know, I think.
Yes.
Well, there are
Very leading question.
Kent even lied to you in that instance about dendrochronology. Oh, it doesn't go that far. It goes back up to 11,000 years. I read 13,000, right? But he even lied to that. So that would be a method in the range of that. But the question is malformed, and it's an attempt to change goalposts already.
And the key word in this question is consistently.
Yeah.
Consistently produces ages to 6,000, 10,000 years. But yeah, let's look at the next question.
No problem. Okay, gentlemen, appreciate that. Was a question for both, so you both got to respond. So we'll move on to the next question. Super chat comes in from Mark Reed. This one is now specific to Kent. So Mark, $5 super chat. Appreciate the support. And here's his question. Because living organisms replace carbon-14 and we measure carbon-14 ratio, how can you use it to tell time from death of the organism?
Well, that is correct. If it has a certain amount today when it's alive, as soon as it dies, it stops taking in new C14, replacing the stuff that's decaying. So you should be able to determine the time of death, which is why I've said, Mark, it should work for something alive because it should give you a zero age. If today is getting 16 clicks per minute on a living object, and you just send a sample of a living object to a laboratory, you should get 16 clicks per minute. If you're only getting 8 clicks per minute, you say, wow, it's been dead for 1/2 life. There should not be a problem with getting 16 clicks per minute versus 8 clicks per minute. It shouldn't. I don't know how anybody can not get that. Okay.
Well, since no lab has ever done a carbon dating, no lab has ever carbon dated a living sample, how do you know what result it would give?
Well, I think I showed you they dated living snails, and they gave a wrong age, vastly wrong age.
Yeah, they gave the reason in that paper for why it gave that age.
Why should they have? What if you weren't? What if you didn't even tell them it was a snail shell? Here, date this. If it contains carbon, they should be able to date it, or something seriously wrong with their thoughts. You should be able to date anything that contains carbon. Shouldn't matter if it's alive or dead or marine, or it shouldn't matter. You guys aren't getting it deliberately.
It really should. It really should.
Well,
I think you're the one who's not getting it, because it just wouldn't make any sense to do that.
Okay.
Well, because you don't want to do it. Okay, don't do it. But I think we should.
It would be a waste. It would be a waste of time and money to do that.
No, it'd be a waste of your theory of a religion. It would just prove you're wrong. You'd have to give your heart to the Lord and get saved. That's the real problem.
Okay. I like how Kent said that it would disprove that I'm wrong. That's pretty good. But my joke about this is, why, if I pee on a pregnancy test, why wouldn't it work for me? It should work on everyone. Hovind?
Yeah, if we shove something into the instrument, give me that result, instrument. Hovind? Give it to me now. Give it to me now.
Temperature, Hovind. A ruler should be able to tell me what temperature it is outside, and if it can't tell me how long something is. Hovind.
Well, Green Suit, do you remember my comment from yesterday about the metal ruler?
Yeah. You want to deliver it again? You'll do it better than me.
So if you have a metal ruler and it starts to melt, you know that the temperature is above the melting point of that metal. So that's one way.
I think you just caused Kent's mind to explode. If he heard that, I think somebody's cleaning up chunks of brain matter around from wherever he was sitting.
Would it be whole chunks? I'm imagining more like little
dots of slime.
A dot of nothing. Yeah.
Kent, I'm just gonna say what I'm thinking. Kent is the kind of guy who'd try to use a rectal thermometer orally. All right, done deal.
Something tastes funny here, Hovind.
Well, his shit-eating grin speaks to that.
Exactly.
I went to the gynecologist for my neck.
Oh, I'm good over here. Neck vagina, Hovind.
Oh, that's cold.
Okay, here's a question. Now that was for you, Ken. So let's get one for
Can you quickly stop,
AJ?
Yeah.
This is like saying, he's often arguing like, if I weigh something with a calibrated balance, really exactly, with an analytical balance in New York, and fly it down to Cape Town and measure it there again, and then say the method doesn't work. That's the whole method of weighing is wrong because that value was off. That's his argument in a big part of that discussion, right? When he cites the snails, for example.
Yeah, his logic is just that wrong. He's not considering all the factors. He refuses to because it doesn't give him an edge to be able to try to argue on. Not that he has much of an edge, but he thinks he's got a point.
Tanya Brown, appreciate the question. If we shouldn't date living samples, how long should something be dead for before we can test it and get an accurate result?
For carbon dating, the range is about 5,000 years to 50,000 years. So I'd say about 5,000.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Kent, anything you want to add?
I still stand my ground. It should work for anything, any age. You shouldn't have to wait 5,000 years after it's dead. It should work. How do you know the amount is in the atmosphere? How do they test the amount in the atmosphere today? They can test the air today and find out how much it has. Why can't they test a living object? It should give the same number. This is real silly, Your Honor. I move for a mistrial. This guy, I win.
AJ, you can have the last word.
It's like mentally
I would
3
just-
years old. Ugh, the I win thing. What is that? Are you freaking 2 years old? Grow up, you child. He does this in I win. I win. I win. It's like the kid from the movie Big Daddy. You guys ever seen Big Daddy? You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about? Every time we play, different rules. He always wins, you know?
Somebody get this kid a Happy Meal?
Ken Hovind will give him a rubber band in the eye. Hovind.
To say that they are objects of known age that they've dated, and the radiocarbon results match the age that they already knew to be correct.
Okay,
So-
thank you. All right, let's see here. Next question comes in for you, Kent. Creationist crybaby. Kent, it's a misuse of carbon dating to try to date samples that are millions of years old or that have been treated with organic substances. Why do creationists often use this bad data? What are your thoughts, Kent?
Crybaby, why do you use such bad logic? Look at your question. Look at this. It's a misuse of carbon dating to try to date samples that are millions of years old. Stop, stop, stop. How do you know they're millions of years old? You have a built-in assumption in your question. I'd say it's a lousy question. So go ahead.
Thank you, Kent. AJ, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I pretty much agree with the question. I would just say that I strongly disagree with the person in the chat that said Donnie is a bad moderator, and he's always moderated my debates fairly. So I disagree.
I agree. Good job.
Well, I appreciate the love, gentlemen. Okay, let's move on to the next question then. Austin Sims, question for AJ. If radiometric dating doesn't work, like Kent says, why are we able to use it to find fossil fuels? Kent, do you think, so it looks like it's a question for both. So AJ, we'll start with you, and then Kent, his portion for you is, Kent, do you think 10% inaccuracy invalidates 90% accuracy under current usage? AJ, let's start with you.
Yeah, good. Shout out to Austin Sims. That was a good debate. So, yeah, I think that this is a good point because the fossil fuels. It's a given example of why is it that fossil fuel companies use a model of the geologic column and of the Earth that is billions of years old and not the young Earth model of being 6,000 years old, when this is an industry that is a billion or trillion dollar industry where their methods have to be correct because such a large amount of capital depends on it. So yeah, I agree that it makes sense that it's evidence that it does work since it's used to find fossil fuels.
Thank you, AJ. Kat, your turn.
Well, this is totally incorrect. They don't use any radiometric dating method to find fossil fuel. I lived in East Texas in the oil field for 5 years. I had a lot of guys in our church and students in my class whose dad worked in the oil field. I visited the oil field, Kilgore Oil Museum, 28 oil wells on 1 acre. Okay, took my students there many times. I'm very familiar with this topic. They find fossil fuels because they know the fuels are down there under certain layers, and they're all sedimentary rock. I think all that sedimentary rock formed in Noah's flood, and all the fossil fuels probably formed because of Noah's flood. Animals or plants being buried rapidly. Fossil fuels aren't forming today anywhere. It was one giant mass burial of a whole bunch of animals, and all the coal down there, there's coal seams 300 feet thick in Wyoming. That's a lot of coal. That's a lot of trees and plants. You can make coal in 20 minutes in the laboratory, but I think Noah's flood buried that pre-flood world, which was probably very different than today, probably mostly land and mostly covered with plants, where today it's 70% water and 10% ice. But I think it was a very different world like the Bible teaches, and all the coal and all the oil formed from Noah's flood. And radiometric dating would have nothing to do with finding the fossil fuels. They know if we drill through this layer or hit a limestone, because certain things are able to contain the coal, contain the oil. They have to have a capstone that's able to that's not permeable. Otherwise, the pressure would leak off and it drift somewhere else. So finding the fossil fuels has nothing to do with radiometric dating. As far as 10% inaccuracy, I never said that. I said they dated coal, they said was 37 million years old, and it came back a few thousand. That's way more than 10% inaccurate. That's like 99% inaccurate.
Okay.
Okay, so this is literally the argument of my dad works for Nintendo.
Yes, yeah.
But it's not
I
even as good as
totally
that.
know a guy.
Well, it's not even as good as that because he was saying my students' dads worked in oil fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he uses this one a lot. It's the whole, my dad was the only survivor of his platoon.
His dad was the only survivor of his platoon because he was in the medical bay with like the flu or something.
Yep.
Right.
And nobody came back. It wasn't like he heroically survived like being on the front lines. Not to take anything away from Kent's dad, but I mean he's misrepresenting I feel like he's misrepresenting what happened a little bit there.
Didn't know that. Wow.
So, and this, the way he answers this question really illustrates a point I make often, which is that you don't settle these matters with a debate on YouTube or Facebook. The way you settle these matters is tens of thousands of hours of man hours in labs, in nature, taking observations, testing them, studying them. You know, you can't solve it in a debate. And it's a great example because I didn't have enough room to make my question so clear that Kent couldn't dip around and malform it and dodge it in that way, which is exactly what he did. I'm not saying that the readings are 10% inaccurate and 90% accurate. I'm saying that the way people use the ratings, when they use the ratings correctly, 90% of the time, they're perfectly accurate. When you use the rating method incorrectly, you know, that little 1/10 that gives you bad results, they give you, you get inaccurate results. Obviously, the fact that you get inaccurate results, that tiny minority of the time when you use the dating method incorrectly, doesn't make the good results you get when you use the dating method accurately invalid. That was my question, which I think he probably knows was what I was actually asking. Although when it comes to Kent, who knows?
I didn't get the question. I understand it now, but I think I was so mentally exhausted at the time I didn't get it. But I think another way to put it is does 10% limitation, or does 10% of like limits on the method invalidate 90% of what it can do? Like Kent is saying like, oh, you can't use it on this or this or this. It's like, well, that doesn't mean that it doesn't work for the methods that it can be used on, or the organisms that it can be used on.
To put it as a metaphor, it's like saying, do you think because a ruler can't tell temperature that it can't tell length? And obviously the answer is no. It can tell length. It's not meant to tell temperature. But I guess AJ made a great point that if it's constructed of metal, it still can if it's hot enough. Great point. I love that.
Gentlemen, you each had a question there from Austin. You both had a chance to respond, so let's move on. Bruce G, question for you, AJ, it looks like. Would a fossil that had been immersed in water for over a year have the same amount of C14 as one that had remained dry? And how would this affect the apparent age? Go ahead, AJ.
That's an interesting question. I'm going to say that it would have the same age, and I don't think it would affect the apparent age or the results if you dated the dry wood versus the one that had been immersed in water, because it's marine organisms that intake C14 from their environment. I don't know if wood just being dipped in water would change that, but it's an interesting question. So I'm not totally sure on that, but I'm going to say that no, I don't think it would affect the age.
Thank you, AJ. Kat, go ahead.
Well, we know the other dating methods, like potassium decays to argon. We know that can be affected. 80% of the potassium in an iron meteorite can be removed and distilled water in 4.5 hours. So I'll do some checking. Could it affect carbon-14 dating? we know that they would claim that's the source of contamination, since the water might have some C14 dissolved in it. So I don't know, but we know that conventional data, they discard ages that are too high or too low compared to the geologic time scale. Canadian Journal of Earth Science. That's how they really date it, not with any of these dating methods. Okay. KBS Tough, the layers are dated by the fossils they find. Not by any dating method, carbon-14 or potassium argon. If they need to try to rescue something, they'll call in an expert in potassium argon dating. But it's a giant Ponzi scheme. The whole thing. It's baloney. Go ahead.
It's all a big conspiracy theory. It's all fake.
You admitted it. Thank you so much, AJ. I knew you'd come around. Thank you.
Yes, Ken knows more than the scientists.
No, I am a scientist. Yeah.
Appreciate the banter. Always fun. You guys are good sports. Okay, echoing erudite. Appreciate the question again. We've had a lot of questions specific to the topic, carbon dating. So people have really enjoyed this. We've still got over 320 people enjoying this. So here we go, AJ. Carbon has been found in diamonds, and diamonds can be made in the lab from living remains. Why is a young age for them unlikely, but all samples being contaminated is likely?
Well, I'm not sure about the diamonds that are made from living remains, about what kind of date that would give, or why you would date those in the first place. But my answer to the question would just be because we have other methods of confirming the older dates, like tree rings, like ice cores, and yeah. So we don't have cross confirmation for the younger ages. That's why I think it's more likely that it's contamination. And contamination isn't the only reason I gave. So.
Thank you, AJ. Kent, floor is yours.
Well, AJ's brought up the ice cores quite a few times here. AJ, I went and talked to the guy who dug out the airplane in Greenland that landed in World War II. Okay, I'll give you his phone number right here. Okay, the Lost Squadron down 263 feet of ice in 48 years. They melted a hole down, took it apart, brought the pieces up. It still flies today in Middleborough, Kentucky for air shows. You can go visit it. In the ground, 48 years, 5.5 feet a year, ice accumulates, and many, many layers each year. There he is. I talked to Bob Carden at the museum, and I said, when you went down to get the airplane out, did you go through ice rings? He said, many hundreds of them. I said, how do you get many hundreds of annual layers in 48 years? He said, who told you those are annual rings? Each one is summer, winter, it's warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold. You get 3 of those in 1 week. So those are not annual rings. Whoever did that, whoever taught you that lied to you, AJ. And I'm sure you liked that information because, hey, it goes against the Bible and you don't like this book. That's the real reason. But talk to Bob Carden. There it is, thelostsquadron.com. I don't know who's in charge now. This was, 20 years ago. But there were many hundreds of layers. Quit mentioning ice cores. You're going to stop using that in your script now?
No, I don't have a script.
But are you going to stop using it as evidence?
Why would I stop using it? Just because you think it's wrong?
Well, talk to the guy.
Are you going to stop saying that we carbon date living organisms?
You're changing the subject. I just asked a simple question. I think
the answer was
obvious.
no.
The layers are not different ages. The ice rings are not annual rings. Okay.
Was that guy who dug out the plane? Was he a scientist?
No, he's stupid. He's wrong. Yeah.
So he's never measured an ice core. He's never actually interacted with an ice core. He just dug a plane out of the ground.
Well, I went to the laboratory where they store the ice cores. When I was there, let's see, ice cores are stored right here. Here's a picture of them storing the ice core. Come on now. So this is another topic of debate. You can get many layers there's ice cores stored in these tubes. Okay, National Ice Core Laboratory in Denver, Colorado. Anyway, that's a different topic. Okay, you're not going to quit using it because that helps support your theory and your rejection of God. Okay.
Well, there are air bubbles in there where they can actually tell what the ancient atmosphere was like. So,
all right, gentlemen. Next,
that's a good counter argument.
I know a guy. I have a phone number. Wow, you have a phone number, Kent. Call the Smithsonian.
You also got a prison number there, Kent, and I know I bring that up all the time, but it's so much fun too.
But in
planes-
response to the air bubbles and the ice cores, his argument was literally,
Can't address that.
Right.
The planes were not in the inland ice of Greenland, right? The pilots survived. So they were buried under some snow, but not dug down into the inland ice. And these ice cores are taken from the inland shelf, where the ice is not
Glaciers.
moving, right? From from Greenland.
From inactive glaciers.
Yes, he's just conflating ice core storage to the story of the planes being, dug out. Just completely unrelated crap thrown together.
Thank you so much for sharing that, you guys, because I had no idea what the hell he was talking about here. I didn't know anything about this plane that crashed, so it made it difficult for me to evaluate his claims here. But I had, let's call it a suspicion that they might be just a teensy bit wrong.
A hunch they're exaggerated.
Yeah.
Just a feeling, gut down, that tells me.
Of God. Okay.
Well, there are air bubbles in there where they can actually tell what the ancient atmosphere was like. So,
all right, gentlemen. Next debate, the great ice core debate.
maybe.
Shepard's got a question for the both of you. $10 super chat. Appreciate it. Okay. Isn't it interesting that biblical items / sites C14, since Moses nearly always dates accurately with biblical dates? Why not accurate for 4,500-year-old strata? AJ, did you want to start?
Well, if the question is if it's interesting or not, I'm going to say that it is not, because I don't know if I agree with this claim. And I don't know if strata is as young as 4,500 years old. But yeah, I think strata is usually measured in the millions of years and not thousands.
Okay, thank you, AJ. Kent, any thoughts?
I think all the strata formed in one big Noah's flood. I think each layer is a different tide, 6 hours, 12 and a half minutes apart. Nothing to do with millions of years. Petrified trees that are standing up, connecting all the layers, are pretty clear evidence. The layers cannot be millions of years old. If you want to question that, you can, but show you the evidence, because evidence means nothing to some people. But here we go. I can't find
agree.
it.
A moment of clarity from Ken
Sad,
Hovind.
AJ. Okay, here we go. Alt DV. There we go. Okay. So I've covered this many, many times, and they always go on to a new topic.
Well, if I can go on to a new topic really quickly, Kent, did you ever find evidence for the trial of Haeckel from our embryology debate?
I did. Somebody sent me some stuff on that. I put it in my slide presentation. That's a different topic, but for tonight. But yes, there was a trial. It's not an official court trial. The university held a trial against their own professor, and somebody from Germany did some research and said, yeah, that really did happen. But even if they didn't, you're missing the point. The fact is, he lied about the gill slits. Whether there was a trial or not doesn't matter. He lied about the embryos having gill slits. Are you going to stop using embryology as one of the evidences for your religion? Or are you going to keep using that?
I don't have a religion, and I am going to keep using that one. And that was a fun debate. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Throwback to the great embryology debate. Kent, were you about to present something, or were we moving on?
I've got too many things open right now in my presentation, and I can't get it to work, man. Plus, I'm a little slow on computer skills here. But okay, no, go ahead. Take some more questions. Then I got to quit, Donnie. I've been building the ark all day. I'm tired.
And you've been up before breakfast, brother.
I had to get up before. It was awful.
We'll wrap it up with 2 more questions. Okay, one for each of you, and then we're gonna.
Who made you get up, Kent? Who forced you to get up?
Did someone pour water on you and whip you out of bed?
No, I don't think so.
He has a Noah complex. He's got to get up there and build that ark.
Right.
So when Ken says that, all these stratas were created in this 1 year of the flood, that is just such a mind-blowingly silly argument. And he makes mind-blowingly silly arguments like that all the time and then calls evolutionary science silly, which is, got to be one of the most infuriating, aggravating things about Kent. And it actually came up a little bit in our debate about, you know, why are these things conforming to the law of faunal succession? Why do they only get found in the layers that match, you know, the times when they existed and all that stuff? And his answer is hydrological sorting, which is not a thing. So I drilled down on it a little bit in our debate, and I asked him, you know, how does hydrological sorting work? I even steel-manned it for him a little bit. Is it based on density? Is it based on body shape, you know, aerodynamics? What exactly is it? And of course, he picked up his little geology toy and said, you know, this is how it works. But I kind of called the bluff, and I was like, let's do an experiment on it. Can we replicate it? I want to see it. I want to see if it can be replicated. And of course, he's like, oh yeah, let's raise the money. Let's do it. But then never talks about it again, because we know we've already done the experiment. It's called fluid dynamics. And when things drown in a flood, they don't just magically sink into a lower layer of strata for no reason. So and it's so weird. Like, that's one of the reasons it's silly. But then the other reason it's silly is he's basically saying that the Eocene, the Miocene, the Jurassic, you know, multiple entire geological periods of time basically happened in a handful of months, which, oh my God, just on so many levels. And it seems like that's kind of his debate tactic. That's his method. His method is to be so incredibly wrong, so fractally wrong on every level, that you would basically have to teach him like 14 different college courses to cover just how wrong he is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
I
would
agree. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to add something about the stratigraphy. So that the question was how, I believe, how long time it takes to form one layer, and it should be noted that there are the original stratigraphy, which is geologic time, but then we also have, of course, stratigraphy within archaeology, which where one layer can be basically anything from, say, 50 years, 100 to 200. It depends. So just want to put that one in there for future use, perhaps.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting how upset Ken still is about that question about Haeckel's.
I know.
Right, AJ?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I translated it myself from German. Hovind?
Well, you got to
I'm a
remember
polymath
too,
for God. I'm a polymath for God. Hovind?
one more thing about that is you got to remember, you've addressed that. He was called out on it. It was embarrassing probably for him, and he hopes nobody continues to bring it up. And now here you are slipping it in very strategically, which was great. But now he has to address it again. So he's like, great, now I got to come up with some more nonsense for this lie I've already told. And now it's kind of resurfacing.
Right.
Which is one of the great ways you can outmaneuver him in a debate.
Right.
Because
Right.
he's very predictable.
Curveballs for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost done, guys. So, gentleman and lady, so let's power through this.
We're gonna let you both get out of here for the night and get some sleep, get some well-deserved sleep. Jesus saves. Question for AJ. Appreciate the question. Considering that written language is traced back to 5,000 to 6,000 years, doesn't it make sense that since humans were created, they started writing? Why didn't man start writing sooner?
Well, one reason is that this is the evidence of written language goes back that far. There could be writings that were not preserved. Like Kent in one of his recent videos said that clay tablets are a good way to preserve things. I don't agree with that. I think the best way to preserve things is like with metal. Like we have coins from shekels from biblical times in coins that have Augustus Caesar's face on them because metal lasts so long. But clay, like cuneiform tablets and things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, parchments, don't last as long. And another reason is just that human evolution, just because humans may have existed at a certain time, it still would have taken a long time for them to develop the intelligence to have a written language and to start writing and to save their writings. Because for a long time, we had the oral tradition of just stories were passed on just via speaking, and they weren't written down. And it wasn't until much later that written language even occurred. So that would be my answer to that question.
Thank you, AJ. Kent, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, his prejudice is oozing off the page here. He says humans weren't smart enough to do this. He's stuck with the assumption his religion teaches that we slowly evolved from an amoeba up through finally got to apes, and then the apes became a human. This is typical evolution propaganda. By the way, I found my polystrata fossils, petrified trees standing up. Okay, so he starts with that assumption, and then he can't. So it took man a while to get smart enough to learn to read and write. I would take the opposite. I think man was much smarter in the past, probably knew things we don't know today. And I think we can't move, like we couldn't move 70-ton stones and cut them to precision like they did for the pyramids and ancient temples and stuff like that. So I think that the evidence is over.
Can I make a couple of comments?
That's why I paused it.
Oh, thank you. So we absolutely can, of course, we could absolutely build the pyramids today if we wanted to, if someone felt it needed. When people say we don't have the ability to build the pyramids, that's simply because we have such an issue in the modern society to imagine how a whole country would come together as one and build these magnificent monuments that are still standing. It has nothing to do with us not having the technology or whatever. It's simply a question of what you are able to do when you have one ruler who is both a king and viewed as a god. If all of your existence, if you have a culture who views the world that all of existence is hinging on this specific guy being able to transcend death into the afterlife, that's the difference. That's how you can build these monuments. Also, I would like to say on what you said about clay tablets, AJ. Yes, metal is very long lasting. However, while papyrus is very, very, very fragile and actually not, it's a freaking semi-miracle that we have even the smallest fragments of papyrus to this day from ancient times. But clay tablets, which have been burned, they are actually indestructible. Of course, they can be ground down into dust, but it takes a lot. It's like the last formation of they don't erode, they don't rot or disintegrate, which is why we have so many of them left. About writing, I wouldn't necessarily agree that there is a point to be made that it takes time for not necessarily intelligence, but to accumulate information and knowledge. But more than that, for writing to be invented, there has to be a need for it, and there aren't really a need for it when you have like nomadic tribes wandering around. A need comes up when people come together into a society. You start to getting what we today call civilizations with cities and a power structure, because then suddenly you have taxation, and taxation was actually the from all the evidence that we have have collected, uh, the most probable, I would say, it is the reason for writing to come up, because that's what we see it being used for from the beginning. It's counting resources and making sure that people um, contribute to this joint effort of protection that is the city states that's formed in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Thank you very much.
Fantastic point, Deviant.
Yeah,
you're getting deep into history, and you know what? A kind of parallel topic was the evolution of our relationship with the equestrians. If we hadn't domesticated horses, we probably wouldn't have written language, because what the horse did for us was it allowed us to expand our empires large enough that written language became necessary for effective communication. Before that, communities were small enough. If you wanted to go give a message to somebody, you just walked, and the same day you'd deliver the message. When we started domesticating horses and expanding our domains, you needed to be able to write things down, because you might not remember that message perfectly if you had to ride a horse 6 days to get where you wanted to go to deliver that message. So yeah,
Yes.
I think you're spot on with your points there, Deviant.
Yeah, that's definitely the spread of language. You're absolutely right. Even yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with all that. I think another thing in the early city states is that they had schools. They were starting to educate younger people, and literacy started to increase. Well, at
So
some
this,
point.
yeah, of course, of course. But again, there we have the spread of languages. Um, Schools were something that developed um, to teach writings, basically, even though they didn't have that name. You're not wrong, but I would put that point to a later date, and not so much the formation of writing, or the
Yeah,
invention of writing. Yeah.
and a cuneiform tablet that's been fired in a kiln is called a bisque tablet. So yeah, just wanted to say that.
Yes.
Oh, okay, we're almost done, guys. That has been a really good stream, so I want to thank all you guys.
Can I make one more point before we continue on a little bit? Kent said something here that I think is actually kind of inadvertently profound. Not in that what he's saying is profound, but that it illustrates, it gets to a deeper level of the whole debate. He said the whole thing about man, and the ancient man was smarter than the modern man. And I think that is just like so crazy. But it does, it like when I think about it, I'm a little jealous of Kent sometimes. He gets to be so blissfully ignorant. As far as he's concerned, mankind is getting dumber. And that means that, you know, a lot of the major problems that we're facing don't really exist, because the real trend of development was like 100,000 years to go from wild animals basically to nomads. And then it was like 10,000 years to go from nomads to, and I'm wildly, I'm simplifying. These aren't the exact dates, but I'm showing the trend is that each time society is making bigger leaps in development, they're happening in less and less time, which means that, our technological capacity to destroy ourselves is also developing at that exponential clip, which, it's a big problem. we need to be cognizant of these things, but Kent doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be worried about this stuff. He gets to live in his blissful little bubble, and it drives me crazy. And that's part of why I'm actually in the debate. I'm actually coming to the table and trying to, counter these guys and say, no, it does matter. We do need to think about these things. Planetary mortality is a very real problem. And if we aren't thinking about it and working on it, we're never going to solve it. Eventually, a gamma ray burst is going to come out of nowhere and wipe us out, and that's it for life in our galaxy. And Kent is actively helping prevent the solution of that problem. And that's why we need to fight him. But sorry, what were you saying, AJ?
Do you plan on debating Kent again?
I am still thinking about it because I did not know that he was currently still working out his domestic violence charge. I thought that had already been resolved. I'm not sure I want to debate somebody who's currently charged with domestic violence. It's a little gross.
Yeah, that's Apologia makes the same argument. I could understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Devian made an important point when she said the need for something, right? I mean, why would the guy asking the question want to restrict it to written language, right? When there is like Deviant, the hieroglyphs are not an alphabet, right? Is that correct? So they have symbols, and this means they had symbols way back further than that, because all the cave paintings are in principle symbols. They are a way of communication. When they pressed the hand to the wall and sprayed it with pigments or something, or painted scenes of hunt and hunted animals. So that is a way of communication, right? I wonder why he would limit it to written language when even hieroglyphs are not a written language. Chinese characters are not an alphabet. They are a language, but not an alphabet. So there's not one point where, and then that's why the word need is so important, what you mentioned, right? They are ways of communication that are by far further back than 5,000 to 6,000 years.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Also, you said something about it not being a language. I think you might have just conflated the alphabet with written language. But make note that Kent earlier in this debate was saying something to the effect of like he put these two together, written language and language, as if language exists prior to the written word. The difference between when we talk about history is the written record. So history up here in Sweden, the historic time starts in 1050 BC, no, CE, Common Era, while the historic era in Egypt starts around 3,500 or thereabout BCE. So, yeah, I don't know why that was interesting, but maybe it was.
And it's ironic, it goes even against his own narrative, because this would mean that it goes all the way through his supposed flood when he says 5,000 to 6,000 years. That almost as if other cultures never noticed that flood, right?
Yeah. I mean, Egypt was going through its most the high point of Egyptian history is actually when the pyramids are built, right at the beginning of their thousands of years long history, and it coincides with the dates given for the supposed worldwide flood. There is absolutely nothing that holds any water, when it comes to a global flood or defending a global flood.
Yeah, it's a shame that I didn't know about this argument before the debate because it would have been really funny to bring up taxation as an answer.
Yeah. Remember, it might come up again. Who knows?
All right.
Well, I mean, ancient man was really smart and probably Adam. I think Adam was created first day. He could walk, talk, name all the animals, and get married. Very smart fella.
Did he speak English?
Yeah, no, yeah, Southern, y'all. He spoke Alabamian.
AJ,
And the Garden of Eden was right here in Lenox, Alabama. Come see it.
AJ, you want a final word, or you want to go to our last question?
I would just say that I'm pretty sure that's what the Mormons think, is that the Garden of Eden is in Mississippi. But yeah, I don't have a comment.
Yeah, Missouri.
The Garden of Eden is in Ontario, Canada. So we've all got our own Garden of Eden. So here we go. Final question for tonight's great carbon dating debate. Round 6 between AJ and Ken. Ken, here you go. From the local hooligan. Do you have any opinions on other forms of radiometric dating, such as potassium argon or uranium to lead, as the half-lives measured are much longer than C14? Go ahead.
We have the very same problem, identical problem. Do you know how much was in it when it was created or died? In the case of a rock, not born, okay? You can't know how much was in it. We know how fast it decays today. That's it. End of story. You can test a sample and find out how much is in it. You could take a sample and say how much potassium is in this, and they could find out pretty accurately. Let's assume I won't argue that. I assume their measuring process is accurate. You don't know what it started with. You don't know that the decay rate's always been the same, and you don't know it's never been contaminated. The same 3 arguments for any of the dating methods, any of them. They'd all fall into, and in a court of law, they'd all be thrown out, an honest court of law. Okay. Yes, I do have stuff on video number 7 about that topic. I don't have slides in front of me quickly. I got 50,000 slides, but we pay 70,000 now. So I could find, if you want to have a debate on potassium argon dating or rubidium strontium or lead 208, lead 206, pick which one you want, AJ, and I'll get stuff ready for it.
Sounds like a good debate for 2025. AJ, any thoughts? Anything you wanted to add?
Not really. I will, I guess, mention the heat problem that if you take the half-lives of elements like uranium that has a half-life in the billions of years, and you want to say that the Earth is only 6,000 years old, all that radiometric decay, compressing that amount of radiometric decay into such a short time, I think would cause a lot of problems on the Earth because of the amount of heat released when radioactive elements decay. So that's one example of the heat problem, which I forgot to bring up during my debate.
AJ bringing the heat with the heat problem. Kent, what do you got to say to that?
He's got a very obvious assumption, which a 4th grader could see. He's assuming all the daughter product we have came from the parent product. If uranium decays to lead, isn't lead a pretty useful product? Maybe God made some lead to start with. You're assuming it all had to decay from uranium, which, by the way, is way up on the periodic table, and you have no way how uranium can form, fusion past iron. You can't get uranium from stars. So anyway, so yeah, that giant assumption in his thinking process, he revealed it very clearly. He's going to say we have to have all this lead come from uranium. No, you don't. Maybe all the lead was created. Maybe 1% has decayed. I don't know. But again, you don't know the initial content, what I've been saying all night.
All right, Ken, AJ, that concludes our Q&A. Lots of fun, as always, with the audience questions. A lot of audience interaction tonight on both sides. So good mix in the chat for both sides of tonight's debate, creation evolution. Okay, guys, if we could, real quick, final words, final thoughts. AJ, appreciate you doing this. Thank you for your time. Hope you had a good time. Let's hand it to you for some final words, final thoughts.
Yeah, if you think lead is useful, Kent, try using lead paint or leaded gasoline would be my response to that. And yeah, I think we can just end it there.
Yeah.
Brilliant ending, by the way. It's just funny. Kent's like, you're making all these assumptions, but it's all he's throwing out is the God of the gaps. I believe God did this. And it's I mean, it's crazy that he doesn't see what he's doing.
Yeah, I brought up the heat problem. I never said that lead could only come from uranium. Kent didn't address what I said with the heat problem.
Right.
And yeah, he pretty much misrepresented my argument and dodged.
He deflected immediately and then just jumped to God of the gaps. I can't defend my position, so I'll just say, well, God probably did it. You know? Great
Guys,
debate, man.
I want us to be talking about the heat problem a whole lot more, because a lot of people don't know about it, and it's such a good, strong argument against these charlatans.
Yeah, I would love to learn more about that, because I'm sort of behind on that because of my interactions with Kent's material over the years, and now just recently coming into what science is. So yeah, if there's resources, that would be great for the heat problem, because it's a valid argument for sure.
There are a ton of resources. My favorite is right here on YouTube. The one and only, very gentle and modern Gutsick Gibbon, aka Erica, has done tons of extremely illuminating videos about it. Check them out.
Yeah, I love
a
her
video
content.
on your channel, Austin, about the heat problem.
Yeah, that'd be great too.
Totally.
We'll do that on your channel, and
For sure.
maybe anybody here, I'm sure, is welcome to show up for that. We
Totally.
can do it in a live stream. That'll be fun.
Sounds fun.
Well, we'll set that up. Thank you guys for joining me. I didn't know this many people were going to hop on.
Yeah, definitely.
And real quick, we have a super chat from Roshina for $1.99. It says Guts a Given for the win. I definitely agree. I'm sure most of the people who watch me are subscribed to her, but definitely subscribe to Erica if you haven't, because she's one of the best YouTubers, period.
Super informative and compassionate, empathetic. Great channel.
Very entertaining and humorous too. She's funny.
Yeah.
She
Great
cracks
sense of
me up.
humor. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the privilege of meeting Erica in person, and she is a great person to interact with. And I got to interview her, which was really cool as well. So that video is on my channel.
Yeah.
If you haven't
Was
seen
that the one your audio went out on?
The audio
Was there
was
audio
low,
issue?
and I recorded it on my phone, so the audio was low. But
Right. I remember watching it, and there was an audio issue. But yeah, I remember seeing that. Well, listen, guys, It's been great. It's been awesome hanging out, and we'll catch you soon.
It was awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you
Thank you
later.
very much.
I'm gonna get going and get some
Take care.
breakfast.